taxes when we pay property tax. There's a county fee and a city fee. There's a $25 or something like that. Well, yeah. Do you have any idea what that's worth?
It used to be for the little license plates that go on your front of your car.
I ain't got no little license, but I'm
How's it going?
good. You?
Yeah, it wasn't all the cost. It's more in the fall, but all that means is like
What's the rate?
It's got a lively,
Okay.
lively indeed tonight. I could have that.
Okay. All right. That's your nephew? Okay.
Y'all ready? Jackie's trying to answer. Y'all ready? You ready? Everybody ready down here?
Gotta bring some more pins up here.
Knock, knock. Ready to roll? Good evening, everyone. It is always a delight to call this meeting to order when we actually have people in the room. So welcome everyone to the City of Oxford Board of Commissioners regular monthly meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022, and it is, by my clock, 7:01 p.m. and we are assembled here in the Commissioners Boardroom of City Hall. And I would like to read the city's mission, which is that we are to serve and improve our community by providing high-quality, affordable services, sound planning for growth and development, and by offering the highest possible quality of life while maintaining the public's trust through open communication and ethical standards at all times. I would like to ask anybody here, please mute or turn off any cell phones or electronic devices. And I invite Pastor Jacob Dye of Bethel United Methodist Church to open our meeting in prayer for all those who choose to join us. Please do so now. Thank you.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, you have created all people in your image. As important topics are discussed tonight and decisions are made, guide us and grant us the grace and courage to seek good for all. Let your justice be our guiding light. May this meeting be a time in which wisdom is sought, patience is practiced, and charity and love prevail. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor. And at this time, Commissioner Ron Bullock will lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Would you please stand, face the flag? Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. At this time, we'll consider adjustments to and approval of the agenda. Does anyone here have anything to adjust with respect to the agenda? Then I would request that we add a closed session at the end of the meeting for purposes of personnel discussion to continue the discussion that we started last week at the agenda meeting with the pleasure of the board.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Tovey to accept the agenda as written with the add-on of closed session for purposes of personnel discussion. Any discussion? All in favor of the agenda, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? The agenda stands adopted. In order to provide for the highest standards of behavior and transparency and governance, our board has approved a code of ethics to establish guidelines for ethical standards for ourselves and to provide guidance in determining appropriate conduct. Among those, that we should avoid impropriety in the exercise of our official duties and should conduct the affairs of the board in an open and public manner. I now inquire whether any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of such with respect to any matters before the board tonight. If you do know of a conflict of interest or appearance of such, please state so at this time. Let the record note, no conflict. And at this time, we'll move forward to the public comment portion of our agenda. And so I will invite Baba Carr to come forward to the podium, and please state your name and address for the record, and then purpose for which you choose to speak.
Greetings to all commissioners and mayor. My name is Baba Carr and I live at 7089 Bayberry Drive, Oxford, North Carolina 27565. I'll continue. I'm a math teacher and a deacon at the Great Timothy Darling Church. I would like to share some important development on the John Chavis Historical Society. Just to say very quickly, in thanks to, should I say, Judge Bridges or Commissioner Bridges, I'd gotten a nice, cozy job at, in a certain place, and he said to me, "Well, that means you won't be in Oxford anymore." So guess what? Because of him, I gave it up. I'm here. The John Chavis Historical Society, on which I am co-chair with Dr. Jones, and we have taken over from Dr. Arthur, who died. That will come out in what I'm saying. I've developed an educational program with the children of Granville County in mind. The John Chavis Historical Society has launched a scholarship program in the name of its founder. And you know, its founder, Dr. Helen Chavis, author, also known as, her African name, Queen Mother Moremi Ajasaro II, who died in January 2022. We are encouraging businesses, city and county officials, and all our residents to donate to the cause. We love our children and stand ready to offer them scholarships to further their education. All our members stand ready to make this a reality. Just a reminder that Dr. Ellen Chavis is also the founder of the Culture Fest that we celebrate in the city in October. She has done so much during her lifetime. As a resident of Granville County, she was and continued to be many of us mentor. We hope to start awarding these scholarships during the school year August 2022 to June 2023. We hope everyone will support this important venture. So if you find yourself with some extra money, be you in law, in the police, I see you over there, but anybody who find yourself with some extra money and you want to use it for our scholarship fund, we're trying to reach to those children who need some extra money in order to move forward in their education. Thank you all, Baba Carr. Just to say also that we will be, already we have roughly about 12,000 saved in the scholarship, and we will be we'll be going to businesses and many private residents and of Granville County and outside and the whole America to get some money. Our children, we love them, and we'll ensure that if they need scholarship money, we are there for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Eddie McCoy to come forward to the podium, and then when you do so, as you know, please restate your name and address and the purpose for your speaking before the board.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie McCoy, 408 Kingsborough Street. I stand here tonight, I want to talk about sidewalks in Oxford. If you don't use one, you got other people to use sidewalks. We need sidewalks. You go to Raleigh Street or Raleigh Road. That whole section over there do not have sidewalks. People walk in the middle of the street. And then when they get to Front Street, everybody on Front Street want to know why those people walk in the middle of the street. They're so used to walking in the middle of the street, that's why black people walk in the middle of the street. They don't have sidewalks. So, you say, well, y'all, they need to get out of the street. How the heck they gonna get out of the street when they used to walking in the street? They're not a field cars. If you go down to all around 8th Street, all back in there, like a Burger King, and Mayor, I know 2 years ago, you know, I come here, we was go from McDonald's all the way up to Lewis Street. What happened to that project? And I know some board members remember that that's where we was gonna go. We have a new house that's coming out on 96. You need to put that in your budget for a couple of years too. It would look nice if you put some sidewalks down there. People can walk to town and spend money. And they don't have to get in their car. So the downtown committee, they need to talk about that too. Is to say, look, if we put sidewalks in town, people can walk and they will come to spend money. And the same thing out at Walmart. Those people coming out there, when they come out of there, they need a sidewalk where they can walk up to the red light and cross over and go in that shopping center and spend money. I don't sit around in Oxford just dreaming and not doing anything, because I was born here and Billy Watkins said I'm gonna die here. And I'm gonna be a Democrat too. I'm gonna die a Democrat too, I wouldn't. So I'm gonna be that too. So the next thing is storage houses. Oh, that's what's coming on. Every time you go build a pub house, somebody done got that, hey, look, you need storage bins too, for people to put their furniture, put this in. Let's send them people, tell them, go to the country, outside the city limits, you want to build those storage houses. Why would you you come into Oxford Walmart, you stop at a red light, you look to the left, a bunch of storage houses, bins over there. Why don't they we need a grocery store. We need businesses here. Tell them if they got money, I got ideas to tell them what to do. They came here and told you, if you don't come to the meetings, I can tell you what happened. They will build apartments out there. And they don't tell you, after they build apartments, as we call a switcheroo in the streets, they want to do a switcheroo. Oh, we came here and told we're going to do apartments, we're going to do now, we're going to do a switcheroo. We want to make more money, so we're going to put storage bins out there. They look raggedy. You can't contain them. You're not going to put scrubbery. You're not going to make them look nice. They'll tell you they will, and that's garbage being thrown up all down the street. Please tell them to go somewhere else for storage bins. That ain't what you say you was going to do. So I want this board, the next time you get some money from Washington, D.C., put a little bit in the sidewalks, please. Okay? And the next thing I'm going to say, the chief of police doing a good job. I want to recommend that. I have to say that because they might give me a ticket. So, I'm going to praise them now. Y'all don't praise them. Hey, y'all doing a good job. And keep doing what you're doing. And I support you.
Praise the fire chief. We'll have a fire.
He going to come anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCoy. You're one of the reasons that I love being here in the city of Oxford.
I have a couple of
getting
questions.
to hear your, yes,
You got to be a
sir.
Democrat, man.
And
Yes.
I meant to ask while Mr. Butler was speaking. You know, you were talking about scholarships, and I'm just curious, when you say scholarships, are you talking about high schoolers? You talking about, what do you mean by scholarships for kids?
Yes, actually, we are hoping that it can cover everyone. At the moment, our founder, her first degree was at St. Augustine. And so we are hoping to have a scholarship in terms of St. Augustine. But we are hoping also to have scholarship that covers many young folks. We have been giving money very quietly. We don't go around telling the city or the county what we do necessarily. But we felt that because we are launching out this time, we want to bring everybody on board, like a big family, you know, one happy family. So basically, the scholarship will be also for some of those in high school as they get along. So it will be for those.
All right, and then just one additional comment, Mayor. I don't usually comment a whole lot when somebody speaks from the podium, because, you know, I hear what they say. But, you know, every day I drive Raleigh Street, you know, Raleigh Road, every day, because that's what the path I take to take my granddaughter to school. And I think that there is not a time that I don't drive down that road that there isn't someone in the street. And I really have to be conscious of when I'm driving down that road to make sure that I'm able to see them. And, you know, we often toss around money and spend money in many ways, but I would have to agree that that is definitely an area that we need to consider when we're talking about any more sidewalk projects and grants and stuff like that. Let's look at Raleigh Road and some of our other poor communities. Thank you.
And you're referring to Raleigh Street, like from front down out to Industry Drive?
Yep.
Okay.
Because that sidewalk on Industry Drive, I can't remember seeing anybody walking on that one.
And I know I've taken a few pictures of some sections where I've walked. Now, there isn't sidewalk on both sides. There's sidewalk on one side. Does it go partway down?
Partway,
It doesn't
just
go all.
partway.
Does it stop at the rest home? I'm trying to think. But
They go all the way
anyway,
to the rest home.
it does not. Okay.
And we do have a child care facility on that road. And I tell you, when I'm riding past there, and of course we were all, well, I don't know if all of us, but whoever the commissioners were at the time, when they had their grand opening,
Right,
you know, it was
right.
named in honor of a couple of kids
Yeah.
who died in an automobile accident. And, you know, every time I ride by there, I'm wondering, will there be a child that might dodge out in front of, because there's no sidewalks and people walk in the middle of the street.
I would agree with you.
We've heard that. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Ms. Hart, did you want to comment? Because I apologize, Mr. McCoy, that my memory fails me, but I know that we've had a number of projects, CMAQ projects, geared towards continuing on down Industry Drive. So, Ms. Hart, do you want to comment on that?
We have Mr. Workham here. He's part of that street, that area. He has students and kids.
So to answer your question, yes, we are still in the design phase of constructing that sidewalk along Industry Drive that'll end up at the intersection of Industry and Wood Street.
Okay, so there you are. Did you hear that, Mr. McCoy? So we've gotten funding, so that project is not abandoned. It's just that everything takes a little bit longer when you put engineers in the mix to do it the way that it will, particularly on that road, according to DOT standards and all of that. It's
Mr. Workham has his people walking the street. He can tell you about it. That comes from his place.
at Juniper Court.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not ignoring that, just saying that we're in the works with the project there. Okay? Excellent. Thank you very much. So now we move forward to delegations, and I would like to invite Tina Cheeks, our Parks and Recreation Director, to come forward to receive the Morgan Wren Employee of the Month Award. So every month, our management team and the team manager and so on designates an awardee of the Morgan Adams Wren Employee of the Month Award. And this month, we are here to honor Tina Cheek for her accomplishments in leadership of the Parks and Recreation Department. So we do have a certificate for her. The City of Oxford celebrates Christina Brooke Cheek, Director of our Parks and Recreation Department, with the Morgan Adams Wren Employee of the Month Award for being capable, approachable, adaptable, and unflappable and supportive of staff and community alike. And it was presented this the 12th day of July 2022 by the City of Oxford, myself, and Board of Commissioners, and signed by myself and the manager. And so please do give Tina. What, you're giving us an instruction? And I have never seen, Tina is steady and responsive and receptive, and she is unflappable. I've seen that in action, and she's awesome, so please give her another round of applause. And at this time, next, we would like to invite our Donald and Makisha Evans of 330 Kingsbury Street here. They are not. Okay. You need to go by and see this house. So they are this month's winner of the Yard of the Month. And so they live down Kingsbury Street on the right-hand side, a little bit past you, Mr. McCoy. And they have this lovely deep sage green house with deep rust tan columns and so on, and just a beautiful front yard. And where our yard is crunching and crackling because of the drought, theirs looks lush and full, and it is just a beautiful color display. And they have a gorgeous landscaped area between the sidewalk and their driveway, and blooming crepe myrtles, pink and white ones. And so it is worth a trip down Kingsbury Street to see this beautiful home. So while they are not here, please do give them a round of applause. And let me see what I have next. I think it's not me. Are we everybody? Oh, Hak Ung. Yes. Come forward. The financial discussion. Oh, we're telling Hak to hold off, and we're moving forward. We're hopping over Hak for a moment. Excuse me, and let me get my just a minute. Okay, I need to make sure I have all my notes here. So Hak is going to wait, and instead we're going to invite Jimmy Terry to come forward on the occasion of celebrating his retirement. And Tina, can you please come back down? And so I apologize, Jimmy, I didn't realize we were changing it around. So this is Jimmy Terry, and he has worked with the Park and Rec Department for, am I right, 17 years?
I can't remember being such, I mean, I had so much
15.
fun.
Oh, great, okay. So I don't get my notes mixed up anyway. He is, the funnest part though, is when you've worked hard and then you get to retire and you still get something. So he started working for the City of Oxford Rec Department in September 2007 as a recreation field supervisor, and then in April 2011 he was hired as a full-time athletic and recreation specialist. He will end his career with the City of Oxford on July 20th, and his retirement is effective August 1st, marking the end of his 15-year career. He has been an integral part in the Parks and Recreation team, first through programming and management of athletic programs, and most recently running the recreation programs for the department. And he has kept the ship steady when there have been some vacancies and so on. He's really been wonderful there. He transitioned from athletics to recreation without missing a beat, taking over summer camp, special events, and senior programs, and he has been a calming and steadying force within the department. and equally so as he represents our department to the community it serves. We will all miss seeing him, and we are really happy for you to start this new adventure called retirement, but we're going to be so sorry to see you go. And I'm going to let Tina say a few words, but first let's give him a round of applause. And we have this plaque that says, "Congratulations on your retirement, presented to Jimmy Terry in sincere appreciation for your dedicated years of service with the City of Oxford. We hope that you enjoy your well-deserved retirement. September 27th, 2007 through August 1st, 2022. Bravo, Jimmy. Tina, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work with Jimmy for about 5 years now, and he has, I think that unflappable term probably defines Jimmy as well, but he is always constant, he's steady, he'll do anything you ask, anything you need, he never questions it. I think every text message I've ever seen or ever sent him, I told him I'm going to miss our long emotional text messages, because everything I send him, if it's a list of 15 things or a list of 2 things, Jimmy's answer is okay. I got it. every single text message, that's what he says. So he's always willing to do whatever needs to be done, and we greatly appreciate that. And there's, you know, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in recreation, so it's always great to have someone doing it. So thank you.
So, God bless you. Take care, and we will miss you.
And he's going to be busy.
Since we're celebrating people, I think I am going to take a minute and I would like to invite Officers Quick and Officer Allen here, as well as Police Chief Pat Ford, to come on down. And Commissioner Bridges, you want to come up for a moment? So this is, they were not on our agenda, but we saw that you have done a wonderful thing in our community, and so we wanted to celebrate you and let everybody else who's here hear about it. So we thought maybe to ask you to tell us what happened, and then we let the, oh, we've got the presentation. It's already been done. Okay. And then we'll let the captain say a few words.
Chief. Chief. That's all right. That's all right.
I am so sorry. Absolutely. I said chief earlier. I apologize. Okay, please take it away. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So basically, one night, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, we got a call. It was a house fire with a woman trapped inside. So when I arrived, the next door neighbor was out on the porch, and she was saying that she could hear somebody inside yelling for help. So with the help of the neighbor, we made entry into the front door. There was already a lot of thick black smoke filling the living room area. She was saying that she couldn't get up off the floor to be able to crawl to the front door. So that's when Officer Allen came, and we found out there was a side door, so we made entry to that door. And Officer Allen, we'll let you take it from there.
We, like she said, made entry into the side door, and you could hear the lady screaming, "I'm over here, I'm over here!" And you know, the flames were probably about, I'd say maybe about 5-10 feet from us. It was like coming from the stove, coming through the walls and everything, and just rising and just coming towards us. And it was a whole bunch of clutter in the kitchen. I guess she had just moved there, so it was a whole bunch of chairs and like a table, we had boxes and stuff, and she was behind the boxes, and I just screamed out to her, "Man, where are you? You know, I can't see you, just, you know, keep yelling." And she kept screaming, "I'm over here behind the boxes, behind the boxes." So I got down and bear crawled a few feet, threw the chairs out, moved some of the boxes, grabbed her by her hand, and then just kind of pulled her out. And she by the time she got to the steps, she was able to kind of get up a little bit, but me and Officer Quick just kind of lifted her up and then just proceeded to go down the steps, and the house was still kind of on fire, and you could hear things breaking, and the smoke just was kind of thick. So she was able to get out, and we got her to the street.
Wow.
Excellent.
I'm gonna let the chief speak in a second, but I wanna say, we are so fortunate in Oxford. Every community has wonderful, amazing people in it. But the good fortune we have in Oxford is that for the most part, we know and we run into these wonderful and amazing people all the time. And it just makes it that much sweeter. So I'd like to ask the chief to say a few words, and then our public safety chair, committee chair, Commissioner Bridges.
I just have a few words. Officer Quick has been with us just over a year, brand new in her career. Officer Allen has been with us a little over 3 years, also brand new in his career. Officer Allen is a 2-time recipient of the Life Saving Award.
Yes, he is.
This is not an award that we give freely at the police department. In my 25-year career here, I've only known this to be the 5th time that an officer has received, and it's extraordinary to receive this twice in about 2 years. But both of these officers, because they put their life, the life of another above their own. These young officers are not exceptions, but examples of the officers that we have at Oxford Police Department. And I hope that the citizens in our community find comfort in knowing that we take our oaths to protect and serve very seriously. Officer Quick and Officer Allen put the life of another above their own and did not hesitate when this incident occurred, and because of their selfless act, a life was saved on May 2nd. And we are very, very proud of both of them.
So I get to stand up here with these heroes just because I'm the chairman of the public safety. But, you know, these officers know I work in the legal profession, so I run into them, you know, on opposite sides sometimes. And I have a great deal of respect and for all of our officers, and they'll tell you, even though I'm, you know, representing a client, I always show them the highest respect. And all I can say to you is, I think my colleagues will agree when I say that I made a comment at our last meeting about us holding on to good officers. You know, we talk about, you know, the fact that staffing is tough right now. And my whole thought is, when you have officers like this, who put their lives on the line, you know, give them the certificate, you know, honor them, but, you know, we gotta make sure we hold on to good folk. And that means talking about, you know, and that's what we have to also focus on as we honor them, but we wanna let them know, because of their skills, we appreciate you in a paycheck.
Well said, Clark.
Bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm just a little hesitant to get up now because there's a bunch of heroes, and retirees, and now I gotta listen to finance, numbers. I'm so thankful for my colleagues. Jimmy was on this year. You know, it's very clear that we take finance really serious. I'm getting ready to report to you at the end of the year, and it's no surprise that not only are we doing what we need to do, but at the end of the year, we have done what we set to do. And this, commissioners, this is your budget. You set it, you vote on it, and you just ask the officer, the budget officer to oversee it, the finance director to make sure it's compliant, and we have done just that. And so now what's left to do is the auditors would come in and comb through it, and then we would get a reporting as to the compliance and all the things that we follow. So here goes. I'm reporting on the end of June. Keep in mind the governmental accounting, the month of July and August, we still get revenue in, and so the revenue doesn't stop. But hopefully the expenditure has stopped. There's a few more utilities coming in that happened in the month of June, and so we have to take care of that in the month of July. However, having said that, we shouldn't have that much more to do with the expenditure side. So with that in mind, the target is 100% at the end of June, and we're looking at the revenue. Revenue this year, tax continued to do very well. We're at 108%. And when you look at the numbers, $10,475,653, that's close to $400,000 above last year's audited numbers at this time. And the majority of that, over around $200,000 is sales tax. So shows that the economy has continued to do well. People are still spending, ordering online and what have you. When you compare that to the budget that was set, the budget was set at $9.6 million. And so we are totally on, not only on target, but have performed well. And like I said, that the budget was set perfectly, and the economy has moved because of the sales tax. The expenditure, right now we're at 94.6%. And that total is $9,126,568. The expenditure over, the revenue over expenditure right now is 1.3 million. Like I said, there's hopefully just a few more adjustments that's coming in. And looking at last year, we finished off at 1.2, this year at 1.3, so we're really, really close. Nonetheless, we're ahead of the schedule. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So going over to the water and sewer, this is the enterprise fund. It operates just like a business, has to make money at the end of the year. The rates and everything's all set up. So right now, we're at 114% for the revenue, and the expenditure is 79.6%. When it's all said and done, it's going to be about $2 million. It's going to be increased. The depreciation and all that, that's the accounting procedures that's going to take place at the end of the year for the adjusting journal entries. So we'll take care of that whenever the auditors, before the auditors come in, we have to figure all that out. And it should be, looking at last year's net, 837, it should be around that as well. Any questions on the enterprise fund?
You would expect, as our water and sewer projects get to completion, then that last line under expenses, transfers to fund capital projects, that line would increase accordingly as it's time to start paying on loans and so on.
Yes, ma'am, but most of the transfers are in the capital project because they're multi-years. This right here just takes care of the small expenditures such as the engineering fees as above and beyond as what's the loan that we went out for the loans. That's why it's only $250,000.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board for Mr. Ung?
So in your package from the manager, it's very important to know that the budget that we started off with and what we ended with, we did not have to do any kind of budget amendment. We did move some different departments that did not utilize their budgets, so we did not have to come to you and present to you a budget amendment. However, this right here is from one department to the next, and it is the authority of the budget officer to be able to do this at any given moment in time and then present it to you whenever we have a meeting. And so this right here sets all the activities.
So in essence, Mr. Ung, you were taking the money that's in parentheses in the street department and engineering, recreation department, those were funds that were remaining, and those were taken and moved to some other departments to fund some additional needs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Give the board a minute to look through it to see if they have any questions. Any questions for Mr. Ung on this, colleagues? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and explanation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And with this, I would like to invite Bruce Naglin from the Department of Commerce to come forward and do his presentation. And we appreciate your patience with all of the rest of the presentations we had on the Community Economic Recovery and Resiliency Initiative.
Good evening, I am Bruce Naglin, and appreciate being here, Mayor Sargent, Commissioners, Mr. Thornton, appreciate your time tonight. As we do a quick review of the City of Oxford Community and Economic Recovery and Resiliency Initiative, also known as CERI, and hope at the end you'll consider adoption of the report and the work plan. I am Bruce Naglin, Community Economic Development Planner for the 15-county North Central Prosperity Zone. I'm with the Main Street Rural Planning Economic Planning Center, which is part of the Rural Economic Development Division of the North Carolina Department of Commerce. It's not on my business card, so I have to say it whenever I can. But CERI was born out of, let me get to the slides here. There we go. Okay, on track now. CERI was born out of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impacts we felt throughout the state and each county and town and city. We spoke to community leaders in all 100 counties and determined that for our communities to survive these shocks, small businesses needed ways to become more resilient to these economic events that occur for whatever reason. Although similar, there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and that's where we and the CERI come in. Bottom line of the Community Economic Recovery and Resiliency Initiative, or CERI, is, and the resulting recommendations, is about economic resiliency. There are 3 sections to the City of Oxford CERI: the CERI report, the work plan, and the economic diversity report. The economic diversity report is more of a technical tool that provides details of an industry diversity snapshot of Oxford. It's a starting point for a deeper dive into the work and labor force, industry, gross regional product, and occupations, providing a path into diversifying industrial growth to assure that all the eggs aren't in just one economic development basket. We won't be going into that tonight, but the report is another tool for the city and the Economic Development Commission for the Gith County. Get this right yet. The Oxford SERI report is a collection of surveys, interviews, and other data that we've gathered and analyzed to develop the recommendations for the City of Oxford work plan, which will be presented shortly. But first, I want to acknowledge the team who was involved in this process. We met about 7 times starting in July last year, and our last 2 meetings were review meetings in January and late February. We had many interesting and sometimes frank discussions about issues and concerns. But it all worked out well. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has had significant impacts on many rural communities in North Carolina, and Oxford has been no exception. Local restaurants were affected by the temporary closures during the spring and summer of 2020. Many small businesses in the community report supply chain concerns and workforce issues, and there were some small business closures in 2020. Cancellation of annual community events and customer health and safety have also been concerns for the local business community. This project has goals which are listed on the screen, and to achieve these goals, we completed interviews with a variety of community stakeholders, a survey of the local government, a survey of the small business community, and additional research on the economic conditions of the community prior to and during the pandemic. The local work group provided invaluable assistance with background, guidance, fact-checking, and making sure that the recommendations were on track. The local work group completed a SWOT analysis identifying a prioritized list of real and perceived strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The top item in each category are as a strength, proximity to I-85 and metro areas. Weakness was a lack of an available trained workforce. Opportunity was to create downtown as a destination, and the threat was concern about developers and even other communities attracting resources away from Oxford. One of the first places businesses turn to for information and guidance is the local government. In order to determine what services Oxford currently provides to the small business community, we prepared a survey to be completed by local government staff. The survey questions were divided into 3 categories: information and resources, communication and support, and regulatory environment. Looking at the left column of the chart, Oxford and its partners provides a good number of resources to the small businesses. The few items not currently provided might be helpful in the near future. We created a digital survey to be distributed by the city and local work group to the local small business community. This survey was designed to identify the perceived impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on small businesses within Oxford, as well as any assistance needed by those businesses. The survey received about 18 responses altogether. A slight majority of respondents reported changes to their business model due to the pandemic. At least one is working on developing an online sales platform. Small business training on topics regarding resiliency are an important component of the SERI initiative, and one of the recommendations made in the recovery work plan is to develop business trainings for all Oxford businesses. Work group, I'll get this right. There we go. Work group members participated in a confidential online survey which allowed the group to share their vision and perception of the business community and the local government. One said, and I just thought this was interesting, that Oxford needs to be a destination and not accidentally found. They said that Oxford's unique role in the economy is that Oxford should be the economic engine for the region. Oxford's greatest undervalued or underdeveloped resources included people, property, historic buildings, and downtown. We asked what scares you the most about Oxford's future, and they had some especially concerned, some were especially concerned about how the exploding population in the Raleigh-Durham area is going to affect Oxford. So that's what leads us to the background of the crux of this whole exercise, which is Oxford's SERI work plan. So it's really tiny letters up there on the screen, but you have it all in front of you, or should. But the SERI work group developed the following recommendations for policies, programs, and projects to further support the small business community in Oxford. Strategy 1 is, that's in the left, furthest left column, is to develop Oxford and downtown as destinations. The goal is to increase public awareness and traffic to businesses and attractions from within and outside of Oxford. The two objectives are to increase investment in public and commercial buildings and locally owned business, and preserve downtown's historic character by fostering architectural design, improvement of physical facilities, and promoting pedestrian activity. Strategy 2, improve quality of life for all residents of Oxford. The goal is to meet the physical, mental, cultural, and social needs of residents, the workforce, and visitors. The objective is to grow workforce education and create housing opportunities. Our recommended actions fall into two categories, as you can see in the green and the blue columns: community economic resiliency and small business support. Strategy 1, under community economic resiliency, develop Oxford and downtown as destinations. 1 is to create a citywide branding and marketing plan. The action would be to engage a consultant to work with stakeholders to create an original brand and marketing plan that would be implemented by the city, local businesses, and industry. Purpose would be to increase public awareness and investment in Oxford, downtown, and traffic to businesses, create traffic to businesses. Second action would be, or project would be, to maintain oversight, education, and enforcement of design guidelines in the UDO. Design guidelines are crucial to preserve the historic character of downtown and the historic district. Historic preservation promotes the uniqueness of Oxford's history, attracting people looking for authenticity, and adds to pedestrian and consumer activity. By maintaining the oversight, the city will be able to keep the design guidelines in the UDO relevant, provide ongoing educational opportunities about the guidelines within city departments and the community with brochures, links to resources, and workshops. The third is to increase the frequency of historic preservation workshops to inform and educate property owners, the public, and elected officials. Fourth is to establish a process to stabilize threatened historic commercial and residential buildings. This would address physically threatened historic commercial and residential buildings in the downtown district. Process would provide a mechanism, financial or otherwise, to stabilize threatened buildings from further damage caused by neglect for the purpose of private investment, rehabilitation, use, and increased tax value. Strategy 2, under community economic resiliency, which is improve quality of life for all residents of Oxford. Find opportunities for the development of a technical school and entrepreneurial incubators. This would help provide workforce training and increase the qualified workforce in Oxford. Number 2 is to encourage development of a cultural arts performance center to provide a place for performances, large gatherings, and cultural activities. Strategy 1, under the small business support, which is develop Oxford and downtown as destinations, develop a master inventory of local businesses, buildings, and contacts. The inventory will be used to contact businesses about opportunities for recovery and resiliency funding, and to find out what local assistance they need to expand and grow. Also to create an online business directory on city and downtown websites. These directories provide residents and visitors with an easy way to find and filter through the businesses in the area that offers their desired services. Online inventory of available commercial and industrial properties. As commercial properties come available, they should be listed online, providing a larger audience to reach out to potential investors. Granville Economic Development Commission has an existing website that could be utilized. And number 4 is business training to initiate and increase online presence. This would provide training for businesses who need to develop or increase their online presence. Pandemic showed how local restaurants and local businesses need an online presence for customers in the event of a brick and mortar failure like we had during the pandemic. Restaurants without an online presence or ordering system suffered more than the larger franchise restaurants that have online ordering capabilities. Number 5 is to develop business training and meetups for Oxford businesses. Business owners discovered during the pandemic that they need training or assistance in several areas, including website development and e-commerce, financial planning, developing marketing plans and resources to find qualified employees. A secondary purpose is to schedule periodic and informal meetups for business owners and managers. This provides an opportunity to build and strengthen the business community. And then number 6, opportunities for businesses to engage with workforce development. This would bring businesses of all sizes together to learn and understand the employment and talent development processes and opportunities to attract employees. This might be a specific partnership between the Chamber, the DOEDC, and NC Works business relations staff to schedule a series of gatherings and presentations. Not much longer, I promise you. Strategy 2, under small business support to improve quality of life for all residents of Oxford, develop workforce housing opportunities downtown and throughout the city. This action is to create opportunities for workforce housing development in the city of Oxford by identifying investors and immediate to midterm opportunities to develop quality, affordable housing for employees. Workforce housing is needed in Oxford, with employees commuting daily from Raleigh and other areas. This would also include a review of existing ordinances, incentives, and density issues. And it's recommended that this be a focus in the upcoming land use comprehensive plan process. And then expand the urban walking trails through downtown. Walking trails, urban and natural, improve the physical and mental well-being of local citizens and workers. Additionally, they can be an attraction to bring more people to downtown to shop, eat, and drink at downtown and other businesses, improving the economy. So that's the report and recommended recovery resiliency plan. I do want to mention that we're not just delivering the report and going away. Part of our mission with the Main Street Rural Planning Center is to develop long-term relationships with our communities and counties that we work with. So we'll be here to help assist in implementing some of these recommendations. And so with that, I hope you'll consider to adopt the SERI report and recovery work plan, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Nadelin. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Very comprehensive, wasn't it?
Absolutely. No questions? Any questions on this end? So I think because it wasn't on our agenda tonight for adoption, and for many members of the board, this is their first opportunity to see it, I think the next step would probably be to send out the complete plan. And I'm also wondering if you could share your slides with Cindy. Cindy can send the plan and the slides out to the board so they have an option of reviewing your streamlined version or the entire plan. And then, colleagues, would it be reasonable to put it on the agenda for adoption next month?
I think so. Give us
Okay.
enough time.
Do we need to have a public hearing on it, Mr. Thornton? We do not? Okay. So we'll add it to our agenda, and then I assume you would like to know how the vote goes.
I would.
Absolutely. Okay. So wonderful. I know we all appreciate your taking the time to come to Oxford tonight to present this to us. You did a great job capturing a lot of information very concisely in your slides, and I'm reminded that there are a lot of good plans in there, and it's nice to know that you stand ready to give us a hand.
Absolutely.
And some of those plans have already started to take shape. Since we worked on the plan, we now have a co-working space downtown where every other month they do offer lunch and learns on various topics to downtown merchants. So this has been bubbling in some people's minds, and some items are starting to move forward.
Terrific. And there's some great partners in Oxford as well.
Yep. Great.
Terrific.
Thank you so much. We
Appreciate
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we move forward to the public hearing portion of our agenda. And we have a number of them. And so item 4A is to conduct a public hearing to be held to receive citizen input regarding a request from Dennis Cyrus of Youngsville, North Carolina, requesting a conditional rezoning from residential agriculture to GR5 CD, general residential 5 dwelling units per acre, and I'm assuming the CD stands for conditional district?
That's correct.
Okay, for the property located off of Highway 96 and backing up to the outer loop across from Jordan Creek Estates. The applicant is proposing as a condition of rezoning to limit the development to single-family homes only with a density level of 2.6 dwelling units per acre, or a maximum number of structures being 363 units. The property is bordered on the north side and is vacant and residential, the west being commercial and the south residential. And colleagues, you have support information in attachment 4A. And Ms. Hart, were you planning on doing a presentation to kind of do an overview for what the implications of the change in zoning are? So that would be great. Thank you very much.
So this is the subdivision that's off of the outer loop, right across from Jordan Creek. And at our last meeting, we talked about the applicant will have some challenges in the floodplain, as you can see here from the tax map. Those are the way that the lots are laid out. The driveway here, Jordan Creek is right here, and then that one off the Highway 96 as well. Right there. Conditional district rezone request for the Oxford subdivision. Conditional district rezones a district which conditions are voluntarily added or agreed to by the applicant and approved in the legislative procedure by the Board of Commissioners in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 160B-73. The applicant is requesting to rezone 136.9 on 137 from residential agriculture to GR5, which would allow 685 dwelling units. Again, the GR5 allows up to 5 dwelling units an acre, but the applicant is voluntarily proposing 2.6 or 263, and I think my math was wrong, that should be 256 dwelling units for a lot that's 8,000 square feet, 60 feet in width, in comparison to the GR3, or the 3 dwelling units of acre, which would be 10,000 square feet, 70 feet in width, 2 access points off the Highway 96 and the outer loop, which I showed you in the previous slide. And this again, one access is across from Jordan Creek, and the property is less than a mile from the primary corporate limits. 38.79 acres will be open space for 28.3% of the required 7.5 passive and 5% open. I can't read what that is saying. I think that was talking about the street system that we had, it is approved.
I think that's 15,250 linear feet.
That's correct, which will be added to the street system, if this is approved and the applicant sees annexation. And, provide conveying all of the single-family dwellings in the attached lot. And do you have anybody here?
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. At this time, I will declare the public hearing open. And I invite anyone in the section to my right to come forward and speak on this issue. Is there anyone in the center section that would like to come forward to speak on this issue? Is there anyone on my left that would like to come forward to speak?
Mayor, Board, my name's Al Woodliff. I'm a resident of 211 Gray Street here in Oxford. I'm here on behalf of the Granville County Shrine Club, which is located on Highway 158. And I was squinching to read, and I just need maybe Ms. Hart to clarify this. The bufferage for our property, which it backs up to on 158, we would like to know what type of buffering there would be, such as dirt, maybe fence, because we have a large area that's used by us and ACIM that we just wouldn't want people wandering around in the area. As you know, we have a school across the street. We have a nice state employees credit union down the road. And also, I am concerned about the ability of these lots. I know they've come down considerably from the first time you all addressed this, but this is a lot of people, and I just hope that we have enough parking. But for the individuals, because these houses, we have a development on Country Club. One house, you go by any time, there's 12 cars in the yard. So I'm just concerned about that. But my main concern that I was asked to come here by the members of the Granville County Shrine Club was to address the issue of the buffer. I don't know if it could be dirt or dirt and fence, but usually in these situations there are one that's written into the grants. Any questions from anybody? Thank you very much.
For Mr. Woodland? Okay. No, I'm just asking. I think we're good. We'll keep going through the public hearing, and then I'll ask Ms. Hart to speak about the buffering. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Yes, sir.
Mayor, can I say something while he's going through the program?
Yes.
I think Mr. Woodard has this project mixed up with the other one. This one backs up to Highway 96 and not the Shrine.
I think that makes
other project,
it might be the Goshen. Is it the Goshen Street one? No.
Yes.
It would be.
That would be the Goshen Street.
Yes, ma'am.
So, hang on. More to come. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm John Frazier. I'm with FLM Engineering. We're at 8951 Harvest Oaks Drive, Suite 205 in Raleigh. And I'm representing Mr. Cyrus, who's the applicant. I did just want to respond. I do believe Mr. Woodliff is referring to the Goshen Street project, where the Shrine Club property backs up to that project. But while I'm up here, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Ms. Hart did a great job going through the bigger points, but again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, excellent. Colleagues, any questions for Mr. Frazier?
Just a comment. You know, I'm looking at the model homes that you intend to put in that area. Is there any possibility that 12 cars could park in front of any of those homes?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of, but I believe the plan is for each home to have a garage in the driveway. As most typical, they're all single-family homes, so that's the intent.
And are there possibilities of also parking in front of the homes? Or will there be availability for that?
The streets will be public streets. I know Oxford's typical public street is a fairly wide street section, so there'll be opportunity for street parking just like most neighborhoods.
Plus 2 garage?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Got a follow-up to that.
Yes, sir.
Well, 2 things. One, do you know if the builder in their standard covenants puts any restrictions on parking? generally they have a standard set of covenants that they use as guidance. Do we know if they have anything that addresses that specifically?
We have not gotten that far down the road. Happy to consider it if that's something y'all would like to see attached to the rezoning, but I know there will be an HOA with covenants, but just have not gotten that far in the process.
Just generally curious what their boilerplate process looked like, and then this is probably a harder question to answer, but given current conditions, any idea of what their horizon is in terms of like starting a phase 1 on this project?
I was speaking to some of the other neighbors in the audience. We know that this is the first step. Following this step, we'll have to provide a preliminary plan. That will have to be approved. Then we would prepare construction plans. I think the earliest a shovel could be put in the ground would probably be about a year from now, if I had to guess. So that would be my assumption based just on typical timing.
Is that it for you,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I have one. I appreciate you coming to the field questions. I just had on these model homes, I don't really see much information, but I was just wondering approximately how much square footage for each home. Did you know that?
I don't know for sure. I know these are generally representative elevations to give an idea of what they anticipate to build, but I have not seen a floor plan to know what square footage may be.
I see, Ms. Nesbitt, do you have a question? Do you want to speak, or do you have a question for?
I just have some comments.
So can you wait a moment for me to make sure that the board is done with any questions for Mr. Frazier, and then I'll call you up? Okay. Any?
I would like to ask Mr. Frazier about the Goshen Street one about the buffering, but that'll come after this.
Okay. That's right, we'll do one at a time.
Yeah, we do one at a time.
And I had a question I saw on Ms. Hart's slides that it said, I believe, 38.9 acres of open space. A very large amount of that is either floodplain or stormwater accommodation. So I was just, and it might be that because the map is small, I was unable to see it, but with respect to any developed recreation space, I wasn't sure what, is that not on this plan yet, but you know there something will be there?
Yes, ma'am. So this plan is a little bit higher level to provide what we need to show for the rezoning. We'll have more of that detailed information with the preliminary plat, which I believe you will also see. So we'll be able to show those areas. And there are areas within that approximately 39 acres where we'll have some non-stormwater or non-floodplain areas.
Okay, excellent. Anything else for Mr. Frazier? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Frazier.
Thank y'all for your time.
Absolutely. Ms. Nesbitt, please come forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say.
Good evening. My name is Annie Nesbitt, and I live at 5735 Highway 96 North. And my property joins the loop road. And we're right there at the intersection. My concerns are, there are 3 schools in the area, and we're going to have an overpopulation of houses. I mean, there should be adequate schools for the children to attend. I have problems getting out of my driveway in the morning now when school is in session. I have to sit there sometimes 5 minutes to get out of my driveway. We have Webb, we have West Oxford, and the middle school. Northern Granville. So has anyone given that any consideration of the impact that will be on the area. From looking at the sketches that I've seen, I don't see anything for fire lanes. Just at the loop alone, there have been about, at the light there, about 9 people have had deadly accidents. So we need to take all of that into consideration before we go out building more houses in that area. I know we need public housing, we need affordable housing. I'm not against that, but the volume of it and the way that the plans are laid out, they look like row houses, one right after another, and there's no parking. You might have 2 people could have 2 cars. There's no parking for visitors based on the plans that they have sent out in the mail. It's just rows of houses, one slapped up against the other. This is what I see from what I've received in the mail. And I do have a concern about it, the impact it will have on the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nesbitt. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward from the center section to speak on this item? Or any section, regardless of geography? No further comments? Oh, yes, please.
No, I was just not sure whether we'll get to our section or not off of Goshen Street.
This is the.
We're not there.
We're not there.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Right now, we're just talking about this development, which is across the street from Jordan Creek Estates on the outer loop and 96. Anybody that would like to come forward to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Gloria Jones. I live at 7014 Matt Kern Road in Oxford, North Carolina, but I own property in Jordan Estate. And just for clarification, I think I heard Ms. Hart say there's going to be an access point on 158 coming out of the housing development that's facing Jordan Creek. And that's a concern for me because I'm just like Ms. Nesbitt, it's already a concern of traffic coming out of the housing development. And so if there's an access point coming out of the new development, that's gonna be a real congested area. So I just wanna know if anyone has even thought about the traffic flow on that street, on that road. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hart, can you speak, because of both of these concerns, can you take a moment to talk about traffic impact analyses and the types of things that happen as a consequence of that?
Well, we've
Please.
not gotten too far in. We have had conversations with NCDOT whenever we receive those plans. We refer those to NCDOT, and they assure that access will be given, but they've not been approved for what was presented.
Right, but for any development, am I correct in remembering that we require, the city requires that for any development that's going to involve 100 units or more, the developer is required to do a traffic impact analysis, and in order for the plans to go forward, depending on the recommendations from NCDOT,
And our consultants.
and our consultants as well, thank you for clarifying that, then those recommendations have to be implemented in order for the plans to proceed. Does that help a little bit with an understanding? So they can't be addressed before the developer gets to go ahead with respect to the zoning and so on, but traffic is definitely an important consideration. Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to speak on this item? Okay, with that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you gonna discuss the buffers, fences? Is that in later?
We can certainly, Ms. Hart can address that because the buffers apply, I think, pretty much to each development. But Mr. Woodliff's question actually applied, I think, to the item that's next on the agenda. But Ms. Hart, would you like to?
Actually, I'm gonna let Mr. Frazier discuss those.
She's still on this one.
Hey, on this particular project, we don't have any perimeter buffers proposed. We will certainly comply with any required by the UDO, but we don't have anything above and beyond that. The portions of the property are buffered naturally by the streams and wetlands and floodplain area that Ms. Hart showed earlier. But to this point, we don't have any additional buffers proposed for the single-family lots.
Thank you. Ms. Hart, are there requirements for those lots that back up to the property, you know, at that stepped area in the back? Does our UDO require any buffering?
I think it does require some type of, I know it does require landscaping, but I think it's only like 20 feet.
Yeah.
20 feet. Okay. Excellent.
Mayor, I think that's another point for the board members in the audience here tonight, is that this is really a part of a preliminary process of gaining zoning approval to proceed with the project. The project, as it moves forward in stages, will have to meet all of the city's development design requirements that we have in a rather voluminous unified development ordinance. So all of these things that are being asked about, including transportation, buffering, design, recreational space, all of those things, they will have to minimally meet those requirements. In addition to that, since this is a conditional use zoning request, you could place some additional requirements on them as a board, as a condition of that zoning consideration.
Thank you. I have a question, but I know Commissioner.
Oh, I was just going to, city manager really answered that. In the UDO, Cheryl is right. I think it's a 20-foot buffering, and there's, depending on the topography, whether there's going to be trees or bushes there as well. But I think Mr. Woodley was asking about a fence maybe, but well, we can talk about that later. The UDO does cover the buffering at this time anyway.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton, because you mentioned that this is a conditional use request, and the condition that the developer has proposed is the limiting of density. But am I understanding you to say that this board has the right, but would we have to know any additional conditions at this time with the vote, or is it, can we, if there is, I guess that's basically it. If there's an additional condition proposed, we have to, in adopting the zoning change, it would have to be known at that time, correct?
It would be. Are we still in the public hearing portion of this?
Yes, I was about to declare it closed when we had that question,
All right.
sorry.
Well, once you close the public hearing, we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, everybody's had a chance to comment? Okay, I now declare the public hearing closed. Thank you.
All right. The comment that I would make to the board in the consideration of taking action on this item is that in spite of the applicant placing conditions on this rezoning request consideration, if you choose to look upon it favorably, you would need to apply the conditions, be they of the proposing by the applicant or your own, so that it becomes an official part of the record. I would not advise you to just accept a voluntary consideration upon myself for conditions. You need to actually enter that into the record as part of whatever motion that is made.
At this point.
Right. So I had that comment actually written to myself, okay. So, with that, the public hearing is closed. We move forward to item B, which is to consider approving the request from Dennis Cyrus of Youngsville, North Carolina, to rezone the property located off of Highway 96 and backing up to the outer loop across from Jordan Creek Estates from residential agriculture to general residential 5 dwellings per acre conditional district. That's what the initial CD are for. The recommended action is that planning board and staff do recommend approving the conditional district rezoning request from RA to GR5 CD. And so I ask, what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Is that Commissioner Khan?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve. So this is what my question was, that if we approve this, can we specify that the limitation is a maximum of 2.6 dwelling units per acre for no more than 363 dwellings in the development? And that would be part of the motion, correct? Any further discussion on Commissioner Khan's motion?
I would just.
Yes, sir.
The discussion would be, I think that the concerns raised by some of our speakers about the traffic, that we really take that serious. And I know that, we can probably have some discussions going forward about that. But there are, a lot of schools in the areas and locations where development is happening. And I think for us to say that there should be a traffic analysis done, we really need to hold folks' feet to the fire when it comes to issues of proper traffic signals and things like that with all of this development we're doing, because it's going to be a lot more cars, and we're going to have to talk about a lot of other issues with the increase in cars, increase in people. That means you're going to have more law enforcement officers looking and watching. And I think that if we push for the traffic analysis to be taken serious, we'll run into less problems going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm just emphasizing that point for the future and for future reference.
Yes.
That when we receive, and we will, blowback from developers about traffic impact analysis and results and requirements, and you field phone calls, let's remember those comments, because the traffic impact analysis is designed for the purpose of not only protecting the public and the safety, but the future and the way this community looks and the way people and vehicles are transported around town. So we need to be cognizant of that as people come to our community and wish to reap the benefit of the opportunity to develop here, that they should bear that cost.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. And I have a comment to that, but Commissioner Khan.
So point of clarity, just to help streamline this and make sure that my understanding is correct and the audience understands correct. If we approve the zoning request, that then gives the green light for the developer to go out and achieve that traffic analysis study, which they would not be able to do unless we give them the approval for the zoning. So this is step one in a project that has multiple steps. So this gives the green light, and when they do fulfill that traffic analysis, they are required to complete the minimum requirements set within that analysis in order to proceed with the project. Otherwise, they cannot proceed with said project. And that is my understanding in which the order of this takes place. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
for the most part, yes. There are another series of components of it which require, technical engineering drawings
Sure,
of
yeah.
water, sewer, sidewalks, lights, landscaping, recreation.
I kind
all
of
kinds
condensed
of
it down
things.
to
But,
a simpler
yes,
point.
for the general layperson looking at it, please consider that the utilization of common sense in regards to performing a traffic analysis by a consulting engineering firm, which does not come cheap, prior to coming before this board seeking a rezoning to do it. If it's still rezoned residential agricultural and you can't do this project, there's no sense to perform a traffic analysis without the approval of the zoning. So it just makes sense that there is a natural progression of this. And I would encourage anyone that really wants to understand the process a little bit better, either to call us or to go on the city website and look through our new zoning ordinance, our comprehensive plan, and not the comprehensive plan, but the
Unified
Development Ordinance. It's quite voluminous, but all the information in regards to design requirements, traffic, everything is in there. And those developers must comply with those requirements in order to proceed with the project and bring it into culmination.
And I would add that, as you heard Ms. Hart say when I commented earlier, that it's not just the Department of Transportation, but the city also uses consultants, and that was brought up in a previous board meeting, that with an eye on making the best possible decisions going forward to mitigate traffic impacts on the community. And I would, as you all know, I love roundabouts and am constantly hearing comments about how traffic moves so smoothly at Spring Street and Main Street now because of the roundabout, that in my mind, everybody would be better off if NCDOT were more open to roundabouts all over the place, because I think we would not have people waiting at lights. And so that's another issue. But yes, so other comments, discussion? Yes, Commissioner.
I was really wanted clarification to understand that the developer is really going to limit the number of units that they're going to put in and this land, but there's an additional land. So does that mean all that they're not using at this point in this, what are we calling this development?
Conditional use.
No, well, whatever the amount of land is, can they come back and develop it in some other way that they're not using?
Only the.
Okay, so this density is gonna remain with all of the extra space around it.
And that's why the manager proposed that language be included in the motion, that it isn't simply a motion that allows rezoning up to 5 dwelling units, conditional use, but that it specifies the 2.6 dwellings per acre limitation and the maximum number of dwellings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
For the whole plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Toby.
Can we
Commissioner
also add that there's a condition, if it's approved, that they do the traffic impact analysis, or that would come at a later stage?
That's required for
Yeah.
anything that is
Yeah.
100 units or more per land use. That's already in our.
I understand what the people are saying, it is a heavily used area, right? So I understand their concern about that.
Good. Anything down here? Okay, so we have the motion on the table from Commissioner Khan to approve with the conditions as stated, 2.6 dwelling units per acre, maximum 363, or did, Ms. Hart, did you say 362 or 363?
363.
I thought when you were
363.
giving a presentation, you said there was a math thing, but three,
It says
but in
363.
the agenda, it says 363.
Yeah.
Okay.
On my notes, I got 356.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with 363.
Well, I've got 363 in the proposed units on the
On the
development plan for C3.
Okay, great. Okay, 363. All in favor of Commissioner Khan's motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries, and we thank you. We thank you for your comments and the discussion, absolutely. So we move now to item C, which is to conduct another public hearing to receive citizen input on a request from Dennis Cyrus of Youngsville, North Carolina, requesting a conditional rezoning for the property located at the intersection of Loop Road and Goshen Street from residential agriculture to GR10, general residential CU, up to 10 dwelling units per acre consisting of 35 plus or minus acres. The applicant is proposing as a condition to limit the density level to 6.5 dwelling units per acre, or a total of 228 townhomes. The property is bordered on the north side by vacant and residential, west being commercial, south residential, and east residential, and you have support information in attachment 4C. Ms. Hart, would you like to come forward and present your slides on this development, please?
So I think this is what, this is indicated amongst other people, the townhomes on the corner of Goshen Street and the outer loop. And so you see the larger section here, you see the larger section and all of the development placed here, and they own this acre as well. That's the intersection. So again, pivot in blue, the development area, and they own across the street, which not gonna be on that parcel. And so those other units, 228 units, conditional rezoning, which the conditions are voluntarily added, and grouped out of applicant and approved in the legislative procedures of the board of commissioners in accordance to North Carolina General Statute 160B703. This site is 35 plus or minus acres. It requires rezoning from RA to GR10, which is 10 dwelling units an acre, and for the purpose of the townhomes, the applicant is proposing, and this is the math again, but here I have 243, and that is 228 dwelling units opposed to the unit 340. Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Yes, and I think I did have it right in the agenda packet. So the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet, lot width, the 20-foot setback, 25 rear setback. Open space proposed is 16.9 acres or 48.5%. And if approved, this will be 3,865 linear feet of new street system. And here's some elevations showing 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1 half bath with this 2-car garage. Also, the applicant is proposing units without garages, so you have some with, some without. And I'm sure he can speak further on the ratio of how many will have garages and who without garages. So that completes what I have prepared for you.
Excellent, thank you. This is very helpful. Thank you very much, Ms. Hart. So with that, actually, I'm gonna, because Commissioner Woodliff spoke earlier, before I open the public hearing, just with respect to your question about the setback. So it was 25 feet to the rear and 20 to the side. And did you have a particular, do you recall, Ms. Hart, what the requirement is with respect to just simply landscaping or anything?
I don't have that.
Okay, so we could maybe put Commissioner Woodliff in, would you, I haven't opened the hearing, if you want to come back up. Okay. I now declare the hearing open.
Must be getting old. I wasn't paying attention to the last time I was up here, so I apologize for taking up that. But now I got it right. My concerns have been addressed in the first deal we had. And I've sat back here for a long time. If you don't write these things down now, as the manager told you, you'll forget them and you'll have some mad people. That's all I'm asking you. I do want some buffering. I think I applaud them for coming down on the number of houses, and you all are asking them to do that. But I'm still concerned about that many people in an established neighborhood moving back and forth. They need to stay there. I have been to places that they do this and they put the berms up. You put a 20-foot berm around it, nobody's going over there. That's all we're asking for, is privacy that we already have. And I know that most of the things that we build do have this, but make sure it's written in there. That's all that's all we're asking at the Triangle Club. And come to our fish fry in October. Thank you.
Which property?
It's in the new UDO.
That's you're over here, aren't you?
It's in the covered up.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to come forward in this section to our left to speak on this issue?
This is the Goshen Street.
This is Goshen Street, yes. Is there anyone that would like to come forward from the center section?
How are y'all this evening? Jeff Frazier, Frazier Brothers Heating and Air. If you notice from that picture, it's going to encroach on us on two sides. So, like you were saying, we need a fence or berm, because when you get that many people in there, the kids are going to decide, hey, let's go walk over here and see what we got next door. I mean, we had that problem there occasionally, but you put that many people there, we're going to see it. So we need to make sure there's something in place to buffer us a little bit.
More
and
than
traffic
planned.
is going to be an issue too.
Where's your property?
This is traffic.
That's green. Okay, so you're west down.
Brothers right now, Frazier
You got to go both sides. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right in the middle of it. So this is, yeah.
They back. Then they back up.
I'm gonna initial it because I can't write that small number. It says Frazier, heating and air.
Anyone else?
Would anyone else, getting a little chatty. Would anybody else like to come forward from the center section to speak on this item? Okay, well, we won't close it down until he is, anybody in this section that would like to come forward to speak on this item? Sure.
Hey, good evening again, John Frazier, FLM Engineering. As we said before, we'll comply with the UDO for buffering, but we're happy to provide a condition that may be a fence or a berm. I know there's some existing vegetation, so if we commit to a berm, then we're cutting that down if that could be saved. So maybe I've seen in places where we have an alternate condition that's either a fence or a berm. I think I heard that mentioned by both gentlemen. I think we'd be willing to agree to that as part of the request. But I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have. Again, Ms. Hart hit the major points. The concept plan that we provided, the intent with this plan is for garage townhome units. The developer just did not want to necessarily commit to all garage units at this time, given that there may be some changes in the market as they go forward. But if non-garage units were built out here, we would certainly comply with the parking requirements and provide adequate parking for those units, just like we would with the garage units.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that would be my concern, is the fact that if there's going to be parking on the street, how wide are the streets going to be? Would there be adequate parking, especially if you've got houses next to each other and you've got 2 cars per house? That could cause a problem. So that's a concern of mine anyway, and I'm sure it'd be a concern of the residents around there.
Mayor, can I add something? We need to answer John. If the board of adjustment is part of what it is on a project that is not been built yet, but this came up about the parking. They wanted 1 space per unit, 50 apartments, and I think they did settle on 2. Well, I'm making goodwill, whatever. They were asking for 1, and these were apartments. You put 2 people in there, 55 and over, they're gonna have 2 cars, and they got kids to go with. So just keep that in mind, that somebody else is gonna have to deal with this after you do it, to get it straight.
You wrote that down as part of an additional public comment. What I would like to suggest is, and this is my fault for answering questions on the earlier public comment, let's go back to all of our questions with the developer and make our way through the audience to get any more commentary from the audience, and then we can go back to board discussion after we close the public hearing.
I think, Mr. Booth, didn't you have your hand up after Mr. Tobin?
I was, but I mean, I don't have to ask the question right at this moment.
Let's just finish the
Yeah.
public hearing,
Okay.
and then we'll go back to our discussion. Okay? So, Mr. Frazier, I'm gonna let you go ahead and sit down for the moment, and I understand that Mr. Williams would like to come forward and make his comments.
My comment, I got the letter recently, June 27, on the property that we're talking about. And I think we had discussed 228 townhome units on that property. And when I got the letter on the 27th of June, they had moved it to 243 townhomes on site. So, unbeknown to me, it's more than what we agreed back in May, or they did, on zoning. So my question is, you know, we go from 228 to 243. If I hadn't seen this, I wouldn't have paid any attention to it, and it would have probably passed. Then I would have really been kicked off.
So, Mr. Williams, I believe you may have stepped out when Ms. Hart was reviewing her slides, and there was a typo in the slides that said 243, but in our agenda, and Ms. Hart has clarified, it is indeed 228.
Right, I'm sorry, I hate to address it.
That's okay. That's okay. We're just clarifying that you are correct. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward to speak on this item, regardless of where you are sitting? Okay. So with that, I declare the public hearing closed. And colleagues, if you have questions for Mr. Frazier, or, well, here, why don't we we can move forward to the adoption part and have our full discussion then. So this is item D, which is to consider approving the request from Dennis Cyrus of Youngsville, North Carolina, requesting a conditional rezoning for the property located at the intersection of Loop Road and Goshen Street from residential agricultural to GR10 CD, which is conditional district, up to the 10 dwelling units per acre consisting of 35 plus or minus acres, and the recommended action is to improve it. This conditional district request specifying a limitation of 6.54 dwelling units per acre with a maximum of 228 dwelling units. So with that, what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
So that was a motion by Commissioner Bridges with all of the specificity therein. And at this time, yes, any discussion? Commissioner Khan.
So I would like to propose some conditions to the motion of adding in a 8-foot high screening or barrier fence, privacy fence, I guess is the word I'm looking for, in addition to the required, I believe, 20 and 25 foot buffers that are currently placed in the UDO. Because I believe that the buffers that we have placed within the UDO, with the addition of the privacy fence to be maintained by the HOA, should give peace of mind to the property owners who are adjacent that they will have both screening and a barrier, as we've discussed, or as they've discussed as part of their concerns.
Okay, so that's exactly what I was going to follow with. Is do you want to make a substitute motion, or Commissioner Bridges, do you want to roll Commissioner Khan's suggestion into your motion?
You know, I actually had a question related to that for Mr. Frazier.
Please, ask away.
So, I am for development and growth in Oxford, and I've always expressed a concern about, us putting so many conditions on some of our developers that we push folk away, or, and so what I was going to ask is that the board be presented with examples of particular buffers or things that y'all might have as options, and along with what the cost would be, so that we can look at some things, because although I think it's important to have those things for other property owners and business owners, I still would like us to look at some options before we put guidelines, too many guidelines in terms of what it should be or shouldn't be. I would rather see some things that we can take a look at in making that decision. And I was wondering, do you have different options?
Well, not prepared for you all this evening. I know we would be willing to commit to providing a privacy barrier. Again, whether that's a fence or a berm, I know in some places there's existing vegetation based on what I could tell from the aerial, and some there's not. Some places a berm may be more appropriate, some places a fence may be more appropriate. But I don't have any additional information for you on costs or other options at this point.
I think well, if you have a further comment, and then I'll go to the manager, because I think he wants.
We usually get presentations and examples of things to sort of choose from, and along with prices, and I'd like to see something like that.
So does that mean, because I think generally speaking that, because they can't even go that far if they don't get the zoning approval, and so that's why they're not ready with that level of detail. So would you like to retract your motion to approve? Because if you motion to approve as requested, then you know, how the board votes is independent of seeing any examples.
I'm not trying to retract my motion.
Okay, I just want to clarify, but it
It's
is,
clear.
okay. And Commissioner Khan, I've not forgotten, because it looks like it would be a substitute motion, but Mr. Thornton.
Yeah, just a couple of points here, and I apologize, I know that this board discussion time for an item, but a couple of things here I think are appropriate. The former zoning ordinance of the city of Oxford had a section in it in regards to buffering that basically required buffering or additional buffering beyond just the 20-foot or 40-foot whatever setback when there were zoning classifications around the perimeter that were different. Now that we have the UDO, I've read the UDO, I've not memorized it unfortunately in all of its 800-page glory at this point in time yet to be able to tell you whether or not that is in there, but I can't believe that something similar to that would not be in there. So if the zoning is different to the adjoining property than this property, then it creates a requirement for that buffering to be in addition to. So that's one point. The other point is that you know, just in looking at and thinking about these zoning requests as they come in, this one is what, 35 plus or minus acres? The one you just had was, I forget how many, 50?
130.
I mean, we've got properties being considered or being looked at that are as large as 450, 500 acres. And when you get to a point of where you have a concern of a neighbor requiring a developer to put in 8-foot fencing in 500 acres, right? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. You know. I also look at it as there, you know, this is done all over the place across the United States when developments come in, and when development comes in, naturally there are neighbors associated with it around the perimeter. And if what we have in our UDO is not sufficient, then the neighboring property certainly always has the option to do something additional to provide additional security if they believe they are not secure enough with what we have in place. So I would just add that to you this evening for its consideration.
Yes, sir.
To your point, I think I have also not memorized all 800-some pages, but having recently looked through it, thank you, Cheryl, for providing a hard copy, because that was super fun on the tablet prior to that. I will specify that what I'm requesting for the screening, for the additional screening, really just be on the Roxborough Road side of the property where it butts up against the existing homeowners. Obviously, we've got the Loop and Gosham Street as natural barriers on the remaining sides. But certainly, with Fraser Heating and Air, with their property jutting so far into the development, and with the Shriners and so forth right there, it makes sense to have that additional privacy there with it, at least that section.
Mr. Mayor, not to be out of order.
But you are.
This is going to protect, if you allow this to happen, this will protect his development. Because when we have an event and have 345 people, we can turn loose on this neighborhood, they may want fencing.
Because it comes more your fish fry, you guys throw down.
Okay, if you give us a minute, our intrepid city clerk pulled up buffers in the UDO. And so if you give us a moment, required buffer yard types between zoning districts. My, you're outstanding. So, let's see if we understand this, because this is, I do not, it's with, between highway business and, but see, this it shows between RAG3, GR5, and GR10, it doesn't show a requirement. It does not.
That's what I was afraid of. That it doesn't, it's not super clear, is it?
It is not super,
Yeah.
Can we ask Ms. Hart to come take a look?
This is on this side, and this is what's being proposed.
Am I allowed to read?
Different zoning, it just would be GR10 and possibly, so.
What's that?
Yeah, he's on my foot.
And he's going, yeah, I know.
And look, I don't have problems with buffering. It just can't be just general, because that costs of development a whole bunch of money. When you specify a certain area, then that's.
I get it, but our UDO's unclear. It shouldn't be
Because I know they want to check their own businesses. I like to check my business. But as long as it specifies just in that area, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And that's the area.
Limited.
That would be the area he's talking about along
Yeah,
that
I'm
side.
just talking about
From there,
that
say
one
from
side.
there to there.
Yeah.
Just the one side or the
I was just, no, because you got
the.
I'm not gonna reach around Teresa. I'm talking about
This side and that side.
so this is all Fraser Heating and Air. Might as well just bring it down past these homes right here, and just bring it down this side of.
Yeah, not all around.
No, but you got just. I'm just saying.
You've got the Shriners there, ACIM there.
And this is vacant, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Pass the glass of water.
Cheryl suggests.
We're up to a glass of bourbon. We got much further. We got by about 8 o'clock. Next we're gonna be down tequila. Should be on gin or something.
He said, we're willing to look at fence or berm according to what's appropriate at the thing, restricted to this section.
With respect to Fraser Heating and Air, they'll need a fence because that's an industrial business and you don't want, but like, whatever is appropriate there, because we don't want them tearing down trees to put up signs.
Right.
Whatever is the appropriate
Right, to
application.
work with the administrator on what is most suitable to the neighborhood and that area.
As long as they gain privacy and they feel like they've got the right information.
Then whoever develops that will have to put up something.
As long
If
as
that's all residential,
I don't have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand.
yeah, where then you could always put that condition on to the unit, but it's more and more conditions. Which cause problems later. We actually got a developer on Country Club to alter their distance between that.
We just discovered the level.
Because the people there were worried about it.
Hey,
Do you remember that?
we're approaching tequila shots.
Yeah.
Mike's on, we're still live.
That's right. We don't want that. No. Yeah. There's got to be access somewhere.
So there's gonna have to be some interfacing with other neighborhoods.
We're waiting for Commissioner Bridges to return.
I don't think that's too much
Since he made the
to
motion,
ask.
we appreciate your patience. We'll wait for Commissioner Bridges to come back and we'll resume. Thank you.
Actually, I'll take, I'll take one.
But we're in a good place now.
Gotta eat things
Same
wrong.
Go ahead.
All right. I gotta call my babysitter. No.
Thank you all for your patience. That was a very productive moment that the clerk enabled us to have because of some clarification in the UDO. And I think Commissioner Khan, would you like to state what you proposed earlier before we kind of had this loose pause, and as a motion and for clarity's sake?
Okay, so for clarity's sake, the original motion was to provide, my initial call was to provide an 8-foot fence or privacy fence for screening for the properties along the Roxborough Road side of this development. With further discussion, I'm going to amend that request to be fence or berm or appropriate application to provide that screening, because we do have vegetation there. There are some elements. So I feel like working with the developer to figure out which application applies correctly along that stretch of Roxborough Road would be appropriate.
No, you're saying that backs up to the properties.
Backs up to the properties.
That face Roxborough Road.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. And so you have made a substitute motion saying that encouraging approving the request with the limitation of 6.54 dwelling units per acre for a maximum of 228 townhomes, and with either berm or fencing, depending on which is appropriate, and the developer would work with our planning director, the administrator, on determining what is appropriate for the border that backs up to the properties along Roxborough Road. Did I state that clearly?
Yes, ma'am. And for clarity, and I'll ask our planning director just to keep me honest. This is on top of, not in lieu of, any requirements that are in the UDO. So if there's vegetation requirements and so forth for spacing, this is on top of that. This is not replacing that. Is that okay? So we're clear.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. I have a question related to the discussion, but colleagues, do you have any further discussion or questions on this? And my question is for the developer, that in your presentation, you mentioned that you have right now it looks like the majority are going to be units with garages, but there may be some units without garages. And this is not a requirement, this is just a question. Do you have any intention, if there are units without garages, of providing any type of charging station for electric vehicles? Since that seems to be some of the future.
I honestly don't know if we have thought that far ahead in the process, since this is kind of that first step we talked about, but I think you raise a good point, something we'll gladly consider.
Okay. That's it? Okay, any further comments from any board members? Okay. All in favor of Commissioner Khan's substitute motion? I think because it's a substitute motion, we'll do it with raising right hands. Signal so by raising your right hand. And that would be unanimous. Any opposed? That motion carries, and I appreciate everybody's patience with the discussion and the kind of flexible approach that we took to it. Thank you. With that, we move forward to item E, which is to conduct a public hearing to hear citizen input on a rezoning request from Certainty Corporation located at 200 Certainty Drive. The applicant requests to rezone 42 plus or minus acres located off of Providence Road from residential agriculture to light industrial to expand the facility campus. The requested zoning change involves 62 plus or minus acres, in which 42 acres is within the City of Oxford's jurisdiction and 20 plus or minus acres is within the Granville County's jurisdiction. Therefore, the applicant is going through the necessary steps for both jurisdictions to comply. You have support information in attachment 4E. And with that, I would invite our planning director, Cheryl Hart, to present information on this item.
Okay, so we've been talking about the request of Certainty Court requesting to rezone 24.7 acres of land from RA to light industrial, and of course we know that they want to expand their campus, their industrial outfit, and the addition will allow more jobs in the area. We know that there will not be an increase for us. This is outside the city limits, but again, the added revenue will be selling the water at outside rates. I think a lot of jobs will be added, and that's where we will all benefit from having jobs added in our community. And the planning board recommends approval of the
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone in this section that would like to come forward to present on this item? Only one person. Would you like to come forward to present on this item? Is there anyone in the section to our left that would like to come forward to speak on this item? Okay, last call. Nobody would like to come forward. I declare the public hearing closed. And we move forward to item F, which is to consider approving the rezoning request from Certainty Corporation at 200 Certainty Drive. Recommended action is to approve, but from staff and the planning board to approve the rezoning request.
Motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tovey. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Comment,
Yes, sir.
and it's gonna be short, but I wish we got more from circumstances like this. I appreciate the fact that we'll get more jobs and maybe make some money on the water. But, you know, we need to have more discussions about annexing some of these businesses or industries around us. And I think it would provide funding for some stuff we want to do and we need to do, including the swimming pool. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't think you're alone in that, but with the current guidelines under the General Assembly allowing 60% or more of the owners of a property to refuse to be annexed, when you're talking about a single owner, it puts us in a predicament. But you are not alone. Thank you. Any other further discussion from any of my colleagues? There being none, all in favor of approving Commissioner Tovey's motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lord.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're sorry tonight was a long meeting, but we appreciate your being here. Item G, conduct a public hearing to hear citizen input on the conditional rezoning of 52 plus or minus acres from RA residential agricultural to GR 10. Conditional use, general residential 10 dwelling units per acre for property located off the outer loop near the Salem Road intersection. The applicant, C3 Design and Engineering, proposes to develop the property for 233 townhome units referenced as Spruce Pond. The applicant proposes as a condition to develop the property at a density level of 4.47 units per acre. The comprehensive plan shows the property is being developed as urban density, including townhouses as an acceptable use. You have support information in attachment 4G, and I would invite Planning Director Hart to come forward and present her information on this item.
So as mentioned, you have for the 62-acre tract of land that is being proposed for townhomes only, and the density proposed by the developer is 4.47 dwelling units an acre, or 233 units total. And this again is 52 plus 9 acres. Total open space required 6.5 active, 6.5 and active open space, and passive is 7.5% or 3.9 acres. So again, for the active, there's 5%, 2.6 acres, or for the passive, 7.5% or 3.9 acres. And the total number of open space provided is 9 acres. Total linear footage of New Street added is 4,731 feet. This property is a half a mile, just over a half a mile from the primary corporate limits. All units will have attached garages, highlighted in blue. The parcels that's included in this development, in which ingress will come off of the loop road. Right here is the development that was approved, I think that was last month.
Is that Vickers
That's
assemblage?
That is Vickers assemblage
Okay,
right here.
thank you.
And we did participate in a meeting with the developer of this property, Vickers assemblage, to talk about the traffic impact analysis, and we're all still speaking. The meeting went well, and like they reported complying with the traffic impact analysis study.
Where's Spruce Pond going in there again?
It's all
Right
of
here,
those.
everything that's in blue is part of
Okay.
the
There's
52
multiple
acres.
tracks.
Okay.
These maps are really helpful. Thank you very much for doing that.
And that's how the site is laid out. All of the units will be, I did a phone call, and the person wanted to know how far away it is from the property line. And the units will be at least 50 feet from the property line, so they will have to have that. Again, it does show here, ingress to here, right off the hill.
So there are two places, okay.
Yes. And that's the rendering of the units again. The developer has chosen for all of the units to have attached garages.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, I declare the public hearing open and ask if there is anyone in this section to our right that would like to speak on this item.
Good evening, Board. Chad Abbott with C3 Design, 2537 East Line Station Road, in Creedmoor, North Carolina. I do represent the applicants tonight and have prepared the application and the conditional zoning plan that I'm sure you, I didn't catch. I was looking, I was over there sweating. For some reason, I had calculated something different, and I messed up on my calculator, so I was making sure we had the unit count right. So yeah, I see that you showed the map, and then of course you guys have it in your agenda packet. I would say in hearing some of the previous discussion regarding traffic, and many of the neighbors have left, even though this is proximate to some of the existing developments, but just to kind of give you a better even summary of how serious the city takes these traffic impact analysis, under DOT's regulations, I think a development under 300 units is not required to do a TIA. So how this works is when we propose a development, DOT will require a driveway permit to put the city street onto the new DOT, into the existing DOT system. Even though it's an actual street and it will be turned over to the city, they will require a driveway permit for the initial construction because it's still the developer doing the work. The city doesn't yet own the street. So we have to obtain a driveway permit. As part of that, they typically will, under 300 units, say, just go ahead and provide us a left turn lane and a right turn lane as a typical response. No further discussion or studies are required of the adjacent intersections, which is what you get when you do the TIA. So the city has bumped that down by by 2/3 to 100 units. So I mean, we had several discussions about thinking it was, you know, a little overbearing, but you know, we went forward and it is serious. We did go ahead and get the TIA done. We have submitted the preliminary TIAs for this and another proposal we're working on, and they're $15,000 a piece almost. So you're spending $15,000 before we even got the zoning, because we were told that we needed to have it as part of our application and get it in quick. We went ahead and did that. So the city is taking, for anybody in the public still here, which looks like most of the employees, but if Cheryl, I gotta take Cheryl some cookies so I won't have to be last week. But I would have said this in front of the public. You know, they are taking these things seriously. To your Mr. Bridges, you know, question that it's a serious proposal. That the developers are having to go through that effort to analyze intersections for safety, for signal, for congestion, that normally we wouldn't have to do if the city didn't have that much of a stringent requirement. So you can take that to your public if they come up with any questions. So and it is serious, and there's serious cost to the developers to do that. Like I said, we've already spent between two of them of $30 grand. And we don't have zoning on any property yet. But we were trying to understand what the potential impacts to those adjacent intersections would be. So I just wanted to say that as part of this. So that all comes about through DOT requiring that driveway permit, and when those, if the signal down the road is supposed to be shows a level of service that DOT doesn't require. I don't know how that works with y'all's consultant, and they say, well, they still need to upgrade it, etc. That's something to be figured out, I think, as these developments come about. But of course, whatever the city would ask, DOT would likely get on board with, and then would put that as a condition of the driveway permit, that those be installed or upgraded or whatever. And at such a time you go to get your driveway permit, that would be a condition of your driveway permit. Otherwise, they can come out there and plow a trench across your road that you just put in and say you can't use this as access until you make those improvements. So just a little more background.
Interesting.
So you've had our proposal before you. We do have showed all garage homes, and we do have a decent amount of open space to our east and north due to existing streams, and we originally wanted to access Salem Road, but the sliver of land that we have there is a little narrow, and the pond and the existing stream there, we probably would have had a hard time getting a permit from the Corps and from the state to come off of Salem Road. So we propose to access off the bypass. The main access will be on the west, and that access will be left turn lane, right turn lane, etc. And full access, left ins, left outs is full, just like you would normally turn on the end of the street. The other access will be is proposed as a restricted access. It's just right in and right out for additional emergency services to access the development. But will not have two left turns that close together. So that is the gist of what we propose. We've given you a lot of data on the plan, and of course Cheryl has provided you a staff report, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions. I would say on the parking thing as well, we showed on here that we would have a single car garage and a same width driveway, so essentially 2 parking spaces per unit. The size of these units won't allow you really to, you shouldn't have that many cars, but I would say that, these units are more of the starter units, so they're shown on here as 20 by 46, so about 1,600 square feet if they're 2-story. And what I would say is, the HOA rules are meant to help govern those types of things, and of course, this being a city street, Of course, the police are always, at the disposal of the residents as well to enforce those rules as well. And any street downtown Oxford, I mean, especially these are not through streets. These are kind of, local, very local streets to the development. You go downtown and into some of your side streets and stuff, people are always parking on the street, in whether it's new development or existing development. So something you just gotta deal with. And if it's done sometimes in an orderly fashion, it can be okay, but sometimes it's not. So it's just something that you always have to battle, I think. But I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Colleagues?
No, the only
Questions,
thing,
Mr. Abbott?
the only thing I would ask is, there will be parking on the street. Are the streets going to be wide enough to get emergency vehicles down? If something happens and there's cars parked on the street, obviously, will they get a fire truck down there?
So, I mean, these streets are not intended for people to park on. This was a street standard that came from your UDO. We did propose some alterations to it, being that it was bike lanes and stuff. We didn't show bike lanes inside of a circular pattern inside of this development. There's no through streets that connect over to Salem. So we didn't show that, being that we have sidewalks on two sides. But these streets are not designed for parking. And I think that you have two alternatives when you start looking at stuff. You either, if you encourage wide streets, you encourage parking. So you got to either have narrow streets and you strictly, then the residents are mad, say, hey man, you parking on the street, you're in my way. But you get to flirting with too wide of a street section is when you encourage almost street parking and you end up with some of those issues. So these streets are not intended to have street parking.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask you a question,
Please.
Chad? With that in mind, would it be acceptable to the developer that a condition be added potentially by this board that all of these townhome units do have an attached garage, that be a condition?
And that's fine, yes, we would accept that condition, and that's proposed as part of our material that we submitted on the record.
Right.
It actually says it on
can change.
It actually says, well, our plan should be the binding, should be the binding thing that goes with this conditional request, and we actually did call out a one-car garage in the same width drive, but if you need to get it directly a different way, that's fine, yes.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and it actually got away from us on one of the former ones, and I was in a development where there was the discussion if you have visitors, so you've just clarified that there really isn't room if any of these developments any of these townhomes is being inhabited by a couple with 2 cars, then if somebody visits them, there really isn't room. I was just at a development in Raleigh, and what they had nicely done was they had little lots that were for guest cars, so they didn't have to add more on-street parking. The streets look clean and nice, but periodically there was a space for guests. And is that something, because you yourself just said people park on the streets, but then you also said there isn't really room to park on the streets, so there has to be some way to accommodate visitors.
I mean, it's really something it's not that really thought of anywhere that I work. They don't really require visitor parking. You require so many spaces per unit. Usually it's 2 spaces per unit. I don't really know, I can't answer that question. As far as providing additional parking spaces, I mean, we will have amenity areas, and it's fine. I don't think there's a problem with providing those amenity areas there. I think as an engineer and or developer, you're always also trying to minimize your impervious surfaces, so you usually don't propose any more impervious surfaces than required by the UDO. And that's why it probably does not ever get contemplated, any additional parking. Not too many people are looking to build additional parking from both cost and impervious surface requirements a lot of times. We can definitely include, we have several areas, we're not maxed out on this thing, so we have areas where we could include some additional parking spaces. I don't know how the city would, so the easiest way to do that, we don't have room to just put all out parking lots. So how the city would want to regulate parking spaces off of the street, a public street at that point, or just putting head-in spaces or angle spaces off of the public street, or what does that look like? That would be the question.
have to be discussed, but I just want to make sure that any emergency vehicles can get down there, get in and out safely.
Well, I mean, the street section is sufficient
Yeah.
for that, yes.
Yep. Yes, Commissioner Conlon.
So to your point, I think it is a good idea. Probably something we would probably want to address through adjustments to the UDO, because there is, as Chad pointed out, and I'm sure is both engineering and planning departments probably want to figure out what that looks like long-term, as opposed to just maybe sticking it into this plan. As an alternative, I suppose, the way I've seen this handled in the past is through the HOA covenants of not allowing parking on the street overnight, thus making sure that ample space for emergency vehicles to pass through, particularly in the evening hours, is available. And I'm assuming that I don't know if that's something that we can request, since this is conditional use, not conditional district, as opposed to the other two, but I'll look to our manager and our attorney to see if that is something that we can request as part of this.
He is saying that he does not think so.
I didn't think so either, but
yeah, I would have a concern about how to enforce a homeowners association.
Yeah, and we've had that
Yeah,
conversation,
that
nauseam,
becomes
but yeah.
difficult.
Generally, high level HOAs limit the amount of parking, or require cars to be in driveways, off sidewalks. Our ordinances also provide some degree of help there too, in terms of if you try to put 3 cars into a driveway that can only hold 2, and then one's hanging over a sidewalk, that's in breach of our ordinances, and would be enforceable by the city.
Well, the HOA is gonna be an important role, because how many garages have you seen that get piled up with junk or become a man cave? And what was designed to be a parking space is no longer there.
That's a good point. So, Ms. Hart, because I am a big fan of not adding impervious surface, and at the same time, I'm hear former Commissioner Mayor Woodruff's comments that, kind of ringing my ears, and if there were a covenant or a section in the HOA that said no overnight parking, but if, my brother came to visit, or my son, and we had 2 cars in the family, there's no place for them to park, as I'm understanding it. So, Ms. Hart, do you have, and admittedly, we're kind of going down into the weeds, but Ms. Hart, do you have a comment?
For easily, it is out of the garage, when you park your cars in the garage, you got an open space for you to drive.
You said if you park your car in the garage, but are there 2 spaces in the driveway? That's what I'm saying, is if you have a visitor, the issue is,
I think you should be able to get 2 spaces in a driveway.
So on townhome, on single-family houses, it's a little bit easier when you're dealing with townhome developments and the units being 25, 20, 30 foot wide. It's hard sometimes to get 2 spaces without just paving an apron across the whole front of the building.
Right.
And you don't really like that look. You want some landscaping, So it's hard not to let the driveways, if you start putting double parks, it's hard not to let the driveways consume the whole front of that building, and you'll be left with 0 green space in front of it.
okay.
I mean, I don't have a problem, I don't think we would have a problem, the developer would have any issues implementing parking spaces in the periphery, in areas where we can. I mean, we have like I said, we're not maxed out. There's an open slot on the second entrance. There's an open space that's down here that we would provide parking spaces at. How proximate they are to people's units and whether they still try to park on their street versus use those parking spaces is the question. And so adequately spacing them and placing them, I think is the thing that to maybe look at if any ordinance is revision.
Okay.
We will all have a garage as opposed to before, so we're sure we can get into the garage.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else?
Further questions for Mr. Abbott? Yes, sir.
I just have a general question in regards to the proposed width of the street within the development and what is required by the city within that development. This is a GR10 conditional use zoning request. We had an additional or another GR10 request a bit earlier, and you know, we weren't having conversation about the width of the street and the pros and the cons and the ability to get a fire truck in and public services and all those kinds of things. So I guess my question is more for the planning director in regards to is there the ability to make a choice for the minimum width of the street, or is that not some requirement of the UDO itself, taking into account that you're going to have people parking on the street? I don't care what you do, people are going to park on the street. And I would much rather see us regulate that by the width of the street and still have the capability of the fire truck being able to get in there and respond to an emergency situation, rather than placing the burden of the enforcement on the homeowners association or the police department to try to regulate vehicles parking on the street. So I guess that is my question, that is my concern as to why one was different than potentially this one, unless I'm mistaken, in regards to the width of the street in the development.
I think the reason I didn't bring it up before was that most of the other developments had 2-car garages. So they had 2 garages plus the driveway, so I assumed that no one would park on the street in that case, you know. That's the reason I didn't bring it up before.
They're still gonna park in the street.
They do it in Oxford Park.
They do it certainly in my neighborhood, and you know,
Yeah.
some of those houses
Yeah,
are
they
3,000-4,000 square feet and have half-acre to acre yards, and people come and just park on the
They
street.
do it anyway.
Some people turn the garage into storage and then have 4 cars on the street.
Right, true.
So are you?
Yes, I guess I'm asking, because I don't have it in front of me, and again, I have not memorized all 800 pages, that in that general zoning classification and/or that type of residential development, what is the minimum requirement for the width of a street? Because I'm assuming that in the development and the design of the UDO itself, certainly the ability of emergency vehicles to access it is taken into account.
Right.
I mean, we're not just doing 10-foot wide streets and then trying to worry about regulating vehicular parking on both sides. So now that it's become a point of consideration, I think we need to clarify that.
So, Mr. Abbott, do you happen to recall?
Yeah, you do have certain street sections, urban collectors and different types. I'm looking for them now. We used the one that was based on the estimated kind of trips per day, given this type of development, not having a through street, and these all being like smaller local suburban roads. But it's like in yours you had I don't know how wide, a bike lane on both sides of the road. This not being any connector roads, we felt like the bike lane.
The urban 2-lane street?
Yeah, something of that effect, and I'm looking forward on my.
So that actually is what I am showing is a 57-foot right-of-way.
Yes, that's what we have.
5 feet for sidewalk, then 5 feet of green right-of-way, then curb and gutter, 4-foot bike lane on each side. So it seems,
I proposed what was in the ordinance, just minus, and I put that actually in the conditions. I said the typical street section has omitted the bike lanes, and I don't know if I said the use or whatever, I just said, strike 4-foot bike lane omitted from typical street section, just because of the use of the property, and we got 5-foot sidewalks on both sides.
Okay.
I don't think there'll be no bike.
How much pavement is that side to side width
Sir?
wise? How much actual asphalt or pavement is that?
looks like 10 to 12 feet per lane.
Because I can't lay
it's
an
a
engineer
20
scale to that
it's-
or
So
even
it's a
read it.
2.5 foot so it's, and it's 24-foot paved, so it's 2 foot, on each side, so 26 foot wide. 26, which is the minimum fire code, I think so. So, I mean, it's a reason behind, I guess, the minimum width, which was 26, which most fire folks have adopted.
No, I'm seeking to verify that, that's why I'm asking.
Does it, and I see that our engineer had a comment, do you recall bike lanes on both sides or just one?
I can't remember. I
Okay.
just remember the type of development that this is. I mean, having a bike lane on the, throughout connecting internal streets just seemed like a whole lot of extra impervious
Right.
stormwater requirements.
Okay.
Where it wouldn't be really used for anything, because we don't connect over to another road, and there's no possible extension of this subdivision due to the environmental features.
Ms. Ratliff?
Alan asked a question that I was going to, how much actual asphalt?
It looks like if
20
it's a bike lane.
26 feet. 26.
26. Well, the asphalt is 24, then 2 foot curb and gutter on each side is a total of 26 back, front, face to face, 26 foot wide, of travel way, 26.
You get your fire truck through that?
So, I'll add my 2 cents. Nothing really gets built, altered, constructed, proposed, without going through us with plans as well. So we're part of the process just like they are. We refer straight back to the fire code, so it's 20, 26 feet. You can take into account dead ends beyond 155, 150 feet, and also the number of units that actually are in that proposed subdivision. That's gonna dictate the number of entrances, exits, and things like that, so.
I want to say the recent increase to 26 was to help with the issue of people parking on the street.
It's that, and it's also because of anything over 30 foot tall has to have an aerial device inside the subdivision or into the business or the industry side.
So I know a lot of fire departments have recently adopted a minimum of 26, even on some paved ribbon streets with no curb and gutter, all the way out to 26 foot wide, because they were having to deal with people parking on the streets. In the fire code, that's not city of Oxford, that's just the fire.
It's a very, very difficult thing to bring down a large fire truck with 2 F-250s parked on either side with their mirrors sticking out. So you wind up with 10 to 12 feet, maybe, to get through. So that's always a concern that I have, and it doesn't mean that the F-250 is parked right up next to the curb either. Some of them decide to do that far from the curb because they like their, $500 Michelin tires not to get scuffed, so.
I'm sorry I asked the question.
Okay, well, we've
I digress, I apologize.
We've gotten very creative with our public hearings today, I think.
Getting late.
Are there further questions for Mr. Abbott? It's turned more into a question and answer than a hearing. We appreciate that. Any questions for him right now? Is there anybody else that wants to speak on this item? Okay, so with that, I declare the public hearing closed. We went far afield, so I think, discussed what we needed to discuss. So, turning back, let me make sure I'm in the right place. We are in H. Consider.
With conditions.
Okay, yes. Commissioner Bullock, you are motioning with the specifying the limitation of 4.47 dwelling units per acre and 233, a maximum of 233 townhomes, correct?
Correct.
Is there any further discussion on this item? And the specificity of the width of the street.
Absolutely.
Which we've discussed. Okay. All in favor of the motion signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? People want a development in Oxford. He's getting development in Oxford. Okay, thank you very much. We go to item I, which is to conduct a public hearing to hear citizen input on the rezoning of Rosemeyer Corporation properties located at 120 and 208 East Industry Drive, rezoning from neighborhood business to highway business. Do you want Cheryl to present anything more on this item, or do you just want to move forward on it?
Let's move.
Just move forward.
Okay, the applicant is currently using the properties as self-storage units and is requesting the rezoning in the event that the buildings are destroyed. The neighborhood zoning classification doesn't allow self-storage units. The properties along East Industry Drive include apartments, medical offices, restaurants, and shopping areas. And you have support information in attachment 4I. So at this time, I open the public hearing. Would anybody like to come forward to speak on this item? Last call. Nobody likes to come speak forward on this item. I declare the public hearing closed. And we move to item J, which is to consider approving the zoning of properties of Rosemeyer Corporation located at 120 and 208 East Industry Drive, rezoning from neighborhood business to highway business. Planning board and staff recommend approving the rezoning request. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Mayor,
Whoops. I heard.
I said, man.
I would really, because of this storage unit, I'd really like to table this motion, if we can, until we get some more details on it.
That was gonna be my comment as well.
Yeah, I'd like to table this if we could. Because the UDO states, you know, the new UDO, I don't want to keep changing the UDO as it's written. So let's get some more information and wait till our planning, our comprehensive plan has been, we've looked at it, a good look at it.
So are you saying table for more information, or are you saying
Until
table
our
until we finish
comprehensive
the
plan,
comprehensive planning
until
process?
our comprehensive plan has been established.
And we
can
know
look-
what we wanna-
And we know what we can look at, and we know what we want.
Okay, so Commissioner Bridges has made a motion. Are you making a substitute motion?
I am indeed.
Okay, so your substitute motion is to delay until we've completed the comprehensive planning process and had a chance to look to see what
Yes.
we want to do there. Okay.
That's right.
With that, and Commissioner Khan, you had a comment?
Oh, no, ditto to Commissioner Tovey.
Okay.
So that was gonna be my comment.
Is there further discussion on Commissioner Tovey's motion to table until the comprehensive planning process is completed? Okay, there being no discussion, all in favor of Commissioner Tovey's substitute motion, and because it's a substitute motion, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. Signal so all in favor of the substitute motion to table, raise your right hand. I see Commissioner Lumpkins, Bullock, and Mayor Pro Tem, and Tovey, Gilreath, and Commissioner Khan in favor, and those opposed, raise your right hand. And we have Commissioner Bridges, who is opposed, but that motion to table carries 6-1. And I thank you for that. And so we move forward to city business, which is item A, consider appointing Captain Cruz to the Oxford Parking Authority in attachment 5A. And Ms. Cruz states that she would like to be on the Oxford Parking Authority to ensure the vitality of downtown Oxford through safe on and off-site parking. And the recommended action, and you have support information, her application is in attachment 5A. And staff and the Parking Authority recommend appointing Ms. Cruz to the Oxford Parking Authority. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Lumpkins. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. Item B, consider approving the implementation of the professional development policy. The purpose of this policy is to recognize the work performance of the employees of the City of Oxford as a vital key to the success of our organization. Providing professional development to our employees is an investment in their careers and the city's future. The city encourages employees to pursue continuous learning opportunities that will enhance their professional development and are aligned with the city's mission to benefit the community and serve its citizens. The purpose of this policy is to outline expectations, requirements, and anticipated benefits achieved by employees through continuing education efforts specifically accomplished through achieving professional certifications and degrees. And you have support information in attachment 5B. Staff and the Personnel Committee recommend approving and implementing the professional development policy effective July 1, 2022. And I should have handed this off to you, Mayor Pro Tem. I apologize for that. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bridges. Any discussion?
One comment.
Yes, sir.
So, just for the sake of clarification and communication, just so that there's no misunderstanding about what this is based on the questions that we've asked previously and for the record, this will stand as a tool in order for department heads to be able to enhance the career development of current employees, as I understand it from the Personnel Committee and discussions that we had during the agenda meeting. The second part of this, as it relates to any potential compression, meaning current employees who may be, for lack of a better word, put at a disadvantage by other folks who may obtain certain certifications, or current employees who have obtained certifications in the past, they will be able to work with their department heads and the city manager to determine the appropriate potential compensation adjustment should it be warranted. Is that still an accurate?
I think that's generalized enough.
Yeah, I think that was
Okay.
it, yeah.
So if I'm an employee, I've worked for the city for 5 years, and I have a degree and several certifications, and just where current pay is in terms of onboarding new employees who may have those benefits, and we might be, again, compression might be there. As part of my career development plan, working with my department head and through the normal approval process through HR and your office, there is a potential to have an adjustment there if it is in fact warranted.
There is that potential. We would take that into consideration regarding compression issues, if that's valid. I will make the point, and the point was made previously, that the attempt in all of this is, of course, we had, I think the conversation was towards the end of this item on the agenda meeting last week, that typically what we are looking for when we are recruiting for positions is individuals with those skills, education, and training level already to meet that job requirement. And typically that's what you're going to have and hire somebody within that hiring range. So sometimes the person that comes in that has that and has experience and has a number of years is going to come in at above the starting level, the entry salary for that position. Someone coming in with less than those full requirements is typically going to come in at the start or lower. And we've had a number of situations where the person that we are hiring does not have quite all of that, but they are in the process of getting it, that either within 6 months or a year, and we elevate them and reward them an additional 2.5, whatever, to get them up to that once they've achieved that. So we look at that all the time. That is a consideration.
And just, again, to put a fine point on it, I don't know if this exists today, but just assuming that we hired somebody at a lower rate 4 or 5 years ago or in the past, in the probably, I imagine, rarer event, if that person does find themselves below where someone coming on would be, that can be addressed through their department head as part of their developmental process and can be approved.
It can. There's
yeah.
existing language, I believe, already
Yep.
in your personnel policy.
So I just want to make sure that pathway still exists for employees across all departments.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we put a time,
Oh, yes.
I remember us talking about how far back we would go.
Well, what I'm seeing is if
Will
you
become
go to your.
effective
Retroactive,
July 1st.
fortunately.
No. I'm thinking, during COVID, say if we had an employee that had enough self-initiative during COVID to continue their education or whatever in their profession and got a degree, how far back are we gonna say, I'm speaking.
I didn't recall a
We
retroactive.
spoke.
We spoke.
We did speak broad. I'll call it broad brushstrokes about retroactive. If employees in the past, for sake of argument right now, let's say in the past 6 months have achieved those certifications, would they be eligible to receive credit? And during the meeting, there was some, we were open to that possibility. Of course, we had a lot of conversation that day, so just generally, it would make sense. But
But the policy, if you go to the attachment, which is 5B,
Yes.
professional development, the second page, I think the discussion that we had in the meeting was as it relates to merit pay, because
There was.
it says the situations that do not qualify for this program include the following. It's the second paragraph down with 3 bullets. Certifications, licensures, or degrees that are required for the position. That's what the manager was talking about earlier, that if he hires somebody that doesn't have them, he'll hire them at a lower rate and then remunerate them once they've achieved it, but not give them additional certifications, licensures, or degrees that employees already possess are not eligible for this program, even upon recertification if renewed. Seminars or webinars that are attendance based only, and that makes perfect sense. So, but I believe the discussion that we had was that if somebody has something that they could have the potential that would be considered as part of their merit, and if they got it before this program, it would be wrapped in, they would have the opportunity to receive merit pay because this would add to that.
It's a component of consideration, and I would also add that trying to implement a program like this and do so potentially retroactively is difficult in and of itself, because you could have the situation of going, well, we'll go retroactive for 5 years, and then you've got somebody with 5 years and 6 months.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That achieve something, and why did you arbitrarily do 5 years? You could have gone 6 and included me. So my point is, there has to be a beginning at some point, and until you've implemented the plan, it just makes sense to start July 1st and move forward. And it's going to be next to impossible to serve all masters, so to speak, and everything. But I think that with the cadre of things that we are proposing to implement, and with merit pay and a number of other things, that the opportunity is there for folks to achieve additional pay through those additional programs that have been implemented. But for this one specifically, I would not recommend that you go back and try to do it retroactively for 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. That's just, in my opinion, a slippery slope that you don't want to get into. You just have to set a date and move forward.
So do we know how many employees that would affect? So, I mean, just speaking to Commissioner Bridges' comments earlier about keeping the good people that we have, again, we want to make sure it's the messaging, right? I understand the intent, but the messaging, we want to make sure that for those folks who put in that work, that they are able to, whether it be through the process of merit increase or whatever the avenue is for them to be able to be rewarded for that work that they put in, be rewarded. So, if I understand you correctly, if I put in the work 2 years ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is, if we're gonna put the stake in the ground as July 1st, 2022, and I went out and I got my certifications and my degree and all this stuff during COVID, is the example we're providing, then I can potentially be rewarded for that or be recognized for that through the merit process.
Through the merit process or the promotional process as well. And in addition to that, there are other areas that other municipalities, other local governments are looking at to elevate retention levels. So you have other opportunities outside of this specific individual policy of professional development that you can look at to enhance retention.
So let's, let no good deed go unpunished. The last thing I want to have happen is that we have, because of misperception, miscommunication, misunderstanding, whatever it might be, potentially poison the well, if you so to speak, or cause any issues with staff going, well, this is just unfair, I put in all this work and so on and so forth. So two things that I would like to see. One is department heads, as you work with your staff and as this rolls out, if there are issues that come up that again, this is a living document, we have the ability to adjust. This is not a hard and fast rule. If we realize that there is an issue, that we can potentially address it through the means that we already have through our what's written in our policies, or potentially making adjustments to this in order to reflect that. Because again, we want to keep the people that we have and reward them for doing the work that they have done, and also be able to recruit new employees. I mean, that's the essential wireframe. So my hope is through the developmental process, through each department, that they will be able to address these. And I would imagine, again, from department to department, this might be sort of a one-on-one type of issue, that this will be able to be addressed through your office.
It's a living, breathing document. As a matter of fact, back in 2016, you had a professional development plan in your policy, and it was taken out.
Yeah.
So you always have the option as you see things change and morph to amend and revise them, tweak them,
it
whatever
absolutely
you
needs to
need
be
do.
there. And I think to Mr. Bullock's point, it was last week during our agenda meeting. The framework definitely makes sense, and there's a level of comfort there. Just making sure that our staff, our teams know that there is avenue, if those even exist out there. So,
would it be reasonable? I mean, I'm not aware that there's a whole host of people that, because one of the tenets of this, of course, is that an employee is working with the supervisor on determining if a certification would be warranted because it serves the job and the city. But using, for example, getting a CDL. I mean, I can imagine that prior to this, if you had an employee, if Steve and Mr. Blasco in his department needed somebody, then there might have already been some discussion about getting them trained and moving them into a position that required it, so the remuneration came, as the manager said, in a different fashion.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that, because I mean, what I really want, I don't want to legislate personnel policy to death. We have really great, talented department heads and a city management staff that should be able to work that out within the framework. You guys all know what your departments need and where the pain points are, should they exist, and as long as there's an avenue to address it, and this framework hopefully will allow us the ability to, put some brackets around it and go forward. I'm fine with it. Just want to make sure that, again, messaging is clear, and that we have good means for employees to advance and also be rewarded.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I've asked lots of questions the other week, and and I'm still concerned about what we're trying to do here. I understand the essence of it and the importance of it, and there is a need to reward, but we always have to keep in the forefront of our mind that just in the discussion just tonight, remuneration in different fashions, what is that? What is that? I mean, because are we not just stuck with the merit pay and what's the other one called? No, the merit pay and the certification training list. I mean, so if there are other avenues, then they need to be spelled out. They need to be said so that everybody will be on the same page. We can't keep adding to the narrative and we don't really know what it is, because if this is what it is, these three things, the COLA, the certification, and the merit, then leave it at that. If that's what we're gonna use, that's what we're gonna use. But not leave it up to the managers and I mean, and I know the manager has to have input in what is gonna be approved for the different courses and all of that. I get that. But even among, we really need to truly know what we're getting ourselves in. And in 2016, the rationale for withdrawing it was implementation and cost. I mean, so that hasn't changed. And that's why we must be clear.
It wasn't just cost, because the policy was not across the board. That's why I made a comment about general.
I said
implementation. It was segmented because certain areas like police department, fire departments had.
And I just want us to make sure that we're able to do this effectively.
I'll reply when you finish.
Right, let Commissioner Bullock finish, and then we'll go to Commissioner Khan.
No, my comment was based on the word cost. Yes, cost was an issue, but it was more about how that existing plan was being administered, and in some cases not administered, and it was unfair. So it was not a dollars and cents basis of why it was backed out. It was the implementation was not there across the board, and we were making some bad situations worse.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Khan.
So just to clarify, it absolutely is up to the department heads and the managers to figure out what their employees deserve and what their career paths are. It is not up to to this board or to any politician to make any impact on a career person who is working in any department ever under any circumstances. I cannot stress that enough. My comments were specifically just about making sure we had good communication and employees understood and managers understood that we, what the right process is. We have a spelled out personnel process, as the manager pointed out, which is guidance. We are simply putting in the framework to allow for good governance, as Commissioner Bullock mentioned. And we set a budget. We have a budget. Each department works to that budget. We have, we do that efficiently. We have good framework. So I am not in any way suggesting, and nor should we ever again be dictating what the department heads and managers should and should not be doing in terms of pay for the employees. That is, they are the subject matter experts within their own departments. They need to make those decisions within the framework that we have provided and the budget that we have approved. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Further commentary?
One other quick
Yes, sir.
comment, and going back, merit pay and this professional development apply really to the individual, where COLA is across the board. Right. Merit pay, you're recognizing someone for exceptional performance. Professional development is for someone who's taken the effort to make themselves a better employee. That's being rewarded, but it's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Excuse me?
I think I started this and with my question of, and I got an answer. I said we don't want to go back and reward somebody. But now another question. if in the interim, again, we had employees that had enough initiative to continue their education during COVID, will we recognize that? Will somehow they be recognized because, and they're continuing their education? Say if, Ms. Isco, you're here, so I'm gonna pick on you. He had a person that got their CDLs on their own during COVID. And it was 2 years ago, but now you need a CDL driver.
So then would if he was moved into a position where the CDL was required, I would assume it would pay more and that would be so he got a promotion.
A promotion?
And that
But not,
covers it.
not professional development.
Not professional
Not
development.
professional development, you know, specifically for CDL, we already had a bonus.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
specifically that, the CDL.
And it also helps Steve in his case, if he's got 5 employees, but only need 3 CDLs. Are you gonna pay for a 4th and a 5th?
No.
Even though you don't need it.
If that CDL driver went out, got that CDL position, but went out and got their hazmat certification along with the CDL.
But I think that would go back to, was it needed? I mean, because I think the
That's what I wanna
key
know.
is
That's what I wanna know.
that you work with your supervisor. It wouldn't, in essence, maybe I don't need to answer for the manager, but it's not any different than if I went out and got the hazmat certification now, but I didn't ask my supervisor if they wanted me to, and I didn't get approved for it. Am I?
You're correct. I mean, I have an interest in turf, and I've got a turf, pesticide applicator's license, but it's not specific to my job. No, that's not really taken into consideration. If they've taken the initiative to get something in addition to essentially what is required, then that is taken into consideration when we are looking for career advancement. And typically what we are going to do within each department is be developing career development paths for these individuals that are taking those initiatives to get higher training, more education, greater certifications, because they're going to move through the ranks. And then moving through the ranks, you're moving up pay grades.
That answers your question. Commissioner Bullock.
I think a key element on this that's not really spelled out, but going back to working with the managers as we talked about, it's important for the individual to talk to the manager beforehand. And say, I'm interested in doing this, would it apply? Then they get an answer, yea or nay, before they ever get committed to some of these programs that do cost.
Okay, we're clear on that end? Everybody clear? No further comments? At this point, I'm not completely sure whose motion it was anymore.
It was Quan's.
It was Commissioner Bridges. Okay. All in favor of the motion signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Okay, that motion carries 6-1. Thank you for the discussion. Let me make sure I'm on the right item. Item C, consider approving the proposed clarification of the City of Oxford's lateral entry from other governmental employers or other governmental services policy. The proposed clarification to the city's lateral entry policy would allow new City of Oxford employees coming directly from another governmental entity participating in the North Carolina Local Government Employees Retirement System to have their covered by the North Carolina Retirement, looks like.
Employees Retirement System.
System. To have something covered by the North Carolina may have their accrued sick leave balance transferred to the city. Additionally, employees would also accrue vacation prescribed by their number of years or experience with other qualifying employers. See attachment 5C. and I apologize for the slip, it looks like we were missing a word. Or two. The recommended action is staff and the personnel committee recommend approving and implementing the new lateral entry policy, and if you will recall, City Clerk Bowen sent you an email with the corrected item which showed the highlighted in red revised change, which mean, and I'm gonna just read that quickly because of the confusion earlier, new employees who have come directly from or transfer within 1 year of leaving another local or state government organization covered by the North Carolina retirement system may have their sick leave balance transferred to the city. Employees who come directly from a government organization that is covered by the North Carolina retirement system will begin vacation accrual and other benefits that may be applicable immediately and at the rate prescribed by their number of years of experience with other qualifying employers. Vacation will be accrued according to the vacation accrual rate for all Oxford employees. So with that, let me go back. And the recommended action is that staff and personnel committee recommend approving and implementing the new lateral entry policy effective July 1, 2022. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion, I'm going to let Mayor Pro Tem as the her committee take this. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries. Item D, consider approving the living wage increase for certain positions in the city. It will be the position of the city to provide a living wage of $15 an hour for the permanent full-time positions within the city. With this, the city will increase the salaries of 14 positions. You have that support information in attachment 5D. The recommended action is that staff and the personnel committee recommend approving and implementing the living wage increase effective July 1, 2022. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bridges. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. Item E, consider approving the audit contract with S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP to audit the city's financial statements for fiscal year July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. The LGC requires that the audit contract for the city contains the date of the governing board's approval of the contract. Accordingly, the firm of S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP has submitted a contract to audit the accounts of the City of Oxford and prepare the comprehensive annual financial statement as of June 30th, 2021-22 for a fee of $35,500, which is binding. The cost proposal includes fiscal year 2022-23 and fiscal year 23-24 each year for $35,500, which may be subject to change. And you have support information, which is their proposal, in attachment 5E. Recommended action, staff and the budget officer recommend approving the audit contract with S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP to audit the city's financial statements for June 30th, 2021, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Tovey and Gilreath concomitantly. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda is to accept the June 22 finance report by our finance director and approve the June 6th and June 14th minutes. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Khan. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I didn't do a discussion. Okay, we're good. That motion carries. Okay, we still have a closed session to go into, so I'm gonna quick review that Thursday, and I'm gonna get comments from everybody, but let's do reminders. Yes, thank you. Oxford Oaks Distillery groundbreaking at noon on Thursday, July 26th. 22nd, excuse me, Public Service Day at the Masonic Home for Children. The 29th, floating reception for Mike Phelps at the Convention Center, at the Expo Center, and Friday, August 5th, classic car cruising on Little John Street. Anything else that we need to be reminded of by anyone? Okay, so with that, Commissioner Khan, anything else to add?
Just a couple items. Any update to the social district? As some of our bag signs have started falling off. The covered signs, rather. But if you've received anything from the state or anticipate
City
any-
Clerk, we've not received anything back after we submitted all the paperwork
I've
yet, have we?
received the confirmation that they received it, but nothing else.
Do we anticipate, is there a communication coming, or is it just a thanks for submitting and good
No,
luck?
they'll get
Okay.
back with
They'll
us.
basically grant approval.
Yes.
Is what they will do, since we're a creature of the state. And
Yeah.
we gotta comply with their general statute requirements. So
Awesome.
once they accept the fact that we've met those requirements as written into law, such as the operation and maintenance plan and other documents that we supplied and provided, they'll grant us approval to have a social district in Oxford. In the meantime, Mr. Blasco and his crew will kind of check the signs, and if they need to be covered again, we'll cover them again.
Just hoping not to spend money on more trash bags, but no. The second question I had for you was with respect, so it appears that paving will probably begin soon, as I see additional pavement markings going down for utilities, which is always exciting. First part of the question, any updates as to what our plans are going to be with bump outs or painting and so on and so forth? The second part to that question is, we discussed earlier in the spring about the removal of the lollipop trees and the repair of the root wells, or tree wells, whatever you want to call them. Just looking for any updates there. If we can still anticipate the removal of those trees, I will light a candle whenever that day does come.
I can answer that question. We, of course, submitted a grant application to fund that little initiative. And we've heard back from the funding agency. The funding agency likes the concept. So they have asked for some clarification regarding the information that we provided. That information is to be provided by the end of this week. So once we send in that information back, we hope that we will get one way no, whether or not we get the funding. Staff is checking on all of that right now, including what those costs are going to be, so that we determine how we're going to approach the implementation of it. And I still think that, there needs to be a public component of this, that once we receive the funding, that we'll start talking about having a public meeting to talk about the trees and the different species and the reasons for so doing. But in that process, we also are developing some additional information to not just the trees and the species, but what the vaults themselves would look like, what type of tree surround there is going to be. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of different options than just a metal grate. And as you know, some of ours don't even have the metal grates anymore.
Some are missing, yeah.
So now's the time to be looking at making them all uniform, more attractive. So all of that would be included in what we would actually propose once we find out we got the grant.
Caveat to that, would you be opposed to the DOEDC either hosting or providing input on any element of that species or whatever the case may be?
They're going to anyway.
Well, yeah, I meant in terms of like helping host any public forums or anything to get more people's attention.
I think that once we get notification that we have that grant, we've got a conceptual idea of what we believe those tree surrounds will look like in the downtown urban core, that we'll develop that information. And once we do that, then we'll have another conversation with this board about moving forward, calling that public meeting. And I will guarantee you that DOEDC and business owners downtown, the room will be full.
Yeah.
It will be full. And everyone will have their say, but we just want to be, as staff, as prepared in advance for that meeting as we possibly can be. As I've been through 2 or 3 of these already, and sometimes everybody loves the idea and sometimes they don't. So as staff, you need to be as prepared as you can possibly be to deal with whatever you get.
Yeah.
And as far as any development regarding the paving, Amy and I have had this conversation about the timing of it. Right now, we still believe it's mid-August for it to start in some capacity. Where in the Oxford area? Because if you recall, there's, I forgot how many miles, 19 or 20 miles, maybe more collectively in the Oxford area. Not just Oxford streets, but DOT streets in the Oxford area that are going to be done. So they're not going to typically probably start, Main Street. They're going to start elsewhere and work their way to it. And hopefully the last areas that they do will be the areas in which we're pulling out of and doing utility work. But the bulb outs, I don't know. That's a good question for Amy, unless she's had any further conversation with them. And I know her conversations are ongoing.
Currently, I'm working unsuccessfully to get a price on the landscape median on Main Street between the post office and the Baptist Church. DOT and I are having conversations about every 3 days, and one of us has to lead the conversation or the other. DOT does have a concern with the cars being able to back out of the parking spaces on Main Street with the addition of the median. Our consultant has said that they do not foresee an issue with it and are working to produce a drawing that shows that to DOT. With regard to Williamsboro, there's been a bigger discussion that keeps getting pushed out. So it is still on the agenda. We're still looking at it, but with regard to the actual amount of credit that DOT said that they would provide to us if we remove that from the project, I've asked for clarification on that because I was told that the $96,000 credit would actually remove from Bell Street all the way to College and all of Main Street. And I'm like, if you can do all of that for $96,000, I want y'all to be doing the rest of our streets at that price.
Yeah.
So, they are supposed to be going back and recalculating that or confirming what those actual limits are. So it has been, it's ping pong ball going back and forth with various questions and answers and adjustments.
Any indication as to their views on the hydrology study that they were speaking of for Williamsboro?
They're still trying to work on that.
Awesome. That's it for me.
I didn't hear your response, Ms. Rett.
Still trying to talk them out of that by, showing them the flumes that are currently working adjacent to the post office and the Baptist Church at the roundabout.
Right.
If they work there and they have been approved on Main Street for the bulb outs there, why would they not work on Williamsboro, which is at the top of the hill, with the least amount of water that would be accumulated to go through those flumes?
Right. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Khan,
Yes, ma'am.
you're done?
I'm done.
Commissioner Gilreath?
Nothing.
That was nothing? Okay. Commissioner Toby?
Just 2 little things. I wanted to praise the police department again and the fire department for that incident in May. I think not many people in the city really realise what both departments went through, and it's a great outcome. And the other thing is, I was asked today about College Street. When are we going to start work on putting the utility pipes in the centre of College Street?
The water contractor had it on their schedule to start in October because it also will be at the same time as the Masonic Home Parade, and I'm connecting the 2 of them to make sure that will work.
Okay.
So with the challenges they have had on Hillsborough Street and the heat that has slowed all of our contractors down and the weather, I'll have to
Check's in the mail, right? All right, that's all, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Bridges?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Had citizens on Lanier Street to ask that we please do what is it that can be done with the traffic and the speed of traffic on Lanier Street. It's one of those streets where there are cars parked on the side. Person said that they called the police department on several occasions. By the time the police get there, people that are speeding gone. If there's any way that the stop signs could be changed like they did on High Street or like they did on Hicks Mill Road, just something to slow the traffic down on Lanier Street.
Lanier. Chief, you got that? We'll talk about that tomorrow and investigate that a little bit and see what may be recommended.
We've done a traffic survey there.
Huh?
We just conducted a traffic survey there less than a month ago at the request of Howard Heron.
Yeah. And this was from Merv Spencer, who she said had talked with you. So they're really
So
concerned.
what did you learn from your traffic survey?
Of course, we have speeders, really hard. What we look for with those traffic surveys are we pinpoint certain hours, certain times of the day where we can actually put someone out. This train is certified to run radar. Can we put them out during those type of hours or the hours that we're getting back on the survey? That's normally what we look for, is at a particular time of day, but Lanier Street is all that.
All there, speeding all the time.
It's that cut through. Once you come up Williamsburg Street, you turn to the right on Lanier and it brings you out on Forest, right? And you take Forest all the way down to College, so you cut out the whole downtown area by using that cut through.
Chief Cottrell, you know, I sent you something about a temporary installable traffic table and have, just to see if that would be a possible viable alternative, because we know we don't like speed bumps. Did you have a chance to ponder that at all? There you go. I forgot. Well, I'm glad you're on vacation. That's good. So just.
I've looked at those, and Chief and I will have some more conversation about what may come from that and what options that there may be, if there's potentially the option of reconfiguration of stop signs like was mentioned by the council member. We may look at that as a recommendation and come back. If a speed table is something that we want to look at, we may bring that back to you as well. But let me have the opportunity to talk to the chief about what they found after looking at it. I know that's what we have done in the past, that the chief would send their forces out there and just observe for a period of time and come back and make some recommendations off of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Bullock.
Nothing.
Commissioner Lumpkins.
No, ma'am.
Okay, and I think I just want to say thank you to our staff for hanging on tonight. This was a long meeting, but there was a lot to discuss. So thank you to each of you out there that are still here, and to the board. And Mr. Thornton, do you have anything that you would like to add to our discussion?
Very quickly, we're less than 2 months away from the 16th Annual Hot Sauce Festival, believe it or not. That's September 10th, so it's going to be on us quickly. But we're well along in our planning for that. So if you have any desire to see any information, there's a specific page created now for that that you can access for all the information. The other item that I have for you tonight is the Local Government Commission did approve the Carr Lake Regional Water System Water Treatment Plant Renovation Expansion Project Finance Plan for the project. So it's moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Burnett?
Come in.
Okay, so with that, and I hopefully this won't be very long, but I will entertain a motion to go into closed session, for, according to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, paragraph A6, for purposes of personnel discussion.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bullock. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Okay, so with that, we go into closed session, and God bless each of you out there. Please drive safely. I know some of you have a little bit of a ways to go. So, thank you.